Canada, I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
Hello, 2, check. Check 2. Hey, thank you, the Clincher Live.
You can count on me. You're going to have good
Thank you
old
for the
Rob
raid.
to talk you through all this.
Clincher raid, we love it. Thank you, Clincher.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Fellow patriots, I am back from the dead and I have intel that Barack Hussein Obama jammed the ballot boxes in Maricopa County with adrenochrome so patriots couldn't vote at Robruso.
Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Thanks for that intel, Coal Mine. Thank you. That matches up to what I've been hearing as well. Thank you, Coal Mine, for the 21 months of Tier 1. Thanks, DRP, for the 17 months resub at Tier 2. Thank you, DRP. Thank you, Waldo's53, for the 14 months of Prime as well. And before the stream even started, we got a brand new community member, Irksome Roarer, subscribed with Prime. Thank you for the Bezos bucks. Irksome Roarer, welcome one and all. Welcome. What do we think about mid-terminal election spectacular? Everything about this this TRRS election special, which is the season finale of TRRS, by the way. It's the season finale of TRRS. It's the season finale of America. Couldn't have timed that better. What do we think about mid-terminal election spectacular? Very half-assed name. I don't know. This whole thing was very half-assed. As important of a day as it is for both this stream and America, did not put a lot of planning into this. Really booked this whole election spectacular at the last moment. Is this it, or is the next presidential the real finale? What's the season finale, James? It's the season finale. Oh snap, get with me for upgrades tomorrow if you want. What upgrades? Oh yeah, but the upgrades for the stream. Right. No pressure, Lodane. It can be a slow rollout of the new features in season 3. I haven't listened to the album, Coal Mine, but I understand Drake was dissing Megan Thee Stallion, and as everyone knows on this stream, huge supporter of women over here, and I can't condone that. I'm sorry. A lot of disrespect towards Megan Thee Stallion, Serena Williams, and other powerful and influential women coming from Drake. Unacceptable, in my opinion. Unacceptable. Hey, comrade, social distancing. Rob, I gotta say your lighting is amazing and you're glowing, skin on point. Thank you, Clueless. It's good to have you in the stream. It's good to see you. It's your birthday, right? Happy birthday to Clueless. Happy birthday. Very exciting. Yeah. Very exciting stuff. So, this whole season finale, very half-assed. This election special, very, very half-assed, but it's turned out really well. It's a star-studded election spectacular. It's star-studded, folks. Let me tell you about some of the fine individuals that are going to be joining us on this stream today, this election stream. It's the midterm elections. We all love electoralism. We all love voting. We all love democracy. We all love America, frankly. And it's Coal Mine's birthday on Sunday. Hell yeah. Preemptive happy birthday to Coal Mine. So, we've got, coming on the stream today, an unbelievable list of the who's who, a veritable who's who of journalists and political commentators. We got our friend Bleep Blomp Ben, or Benny. Are you going by Benny now? Benny? Is that it? Benny. We love Benny. It's not Jesse Ventura, unfortunately. I was not on the ball enough for that. I will get Jesse Ventura on this stream, though. I will. We've got Bleep Blomp Ben of TYT, of Galaxy Brain on TYT, of course the Bleep Blomp Ben stream as well. We've got human rights lawyer and indigenous activist Pam Palmater coming on. We've got famed New York Times opinion columnist Juniper. Twitter's own Juniper will be joining the stream to talk to us about the election as well. And maybe we'll even do some disinformation while we're at it. We've got, not only do we have acclaimed New York Times opinion columnist Juniper, we've got the Washington Post's own Dave Weigel, political journalist Dave Weigel, will be calling into the show. We've got actual journalist, actual political journalist Dave Weigel will be joining us later on. We've got a couple maybes as well. We got a couple maybes. We got our friend Karen Geyer is a maybe. Our friend Jordan Ewell is a maybe as well for later. Our friend Andre Goulet of Harbinger Media, also a maybe. So we got a couple possibilities as well for later. We've got a couple possibilities for later, but this is the star-studded lineup, folks. This is the star-studded election spectacular lineup. Can you believe this? Can you believe this, folks? Unbelievable. I literally, and Coal Mine, obviously a big-time journalist as well. So totally half-assed. Totally, all the stars are here. That's right. The Redeem Team of election coverage. So totally half-assed, totally booked at the last minute, but I think a wonderful lineup of guests here to talk to us about the United States midterm elections. Wonderful. It's going to be wonderful stuff, folks. By the way, G Cluppy, I see you got that exclusive, highly exclusive 24-month subscriber badge. Congratulations to you, G Cluppy, who doesn't like the stream and doesn't like to support it, but is oddly a two-year subscriber with a fancy 2-year sub badge. So don't ask me to figure that out. Don't ask me to explain it. I've hated every minute of these 2 years. Okay. Good to know. Kornaki's crying and throwing up listening to this lineup. Dare I say, folks, dare I say, there's a lot of people doing election coverage tonight. You got MSNBC, you got NBC, CNN, CBS, Fox News. You got all the different Twitch streams. Everyone's covering this election. Everyone's talking about it. Dare I say, this is the absolute best, most elite election coverage lineup that you could possibly ask for. I'm amazed you didn't do a lively dance while announcing all these monumental stars. I'm dancing on the inside. Okay? I'm dancing on the inside. I'm dancing on my own, like the Robin song. And I just ate some Lebanese food as well.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Slub to Rob.
Stu, thank you for the 21 months of Tier 1.
You can
thank
count
you very
on
much,
me.
Stu.
You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
And our friend Rootbeard as well. Thank you, Rootbeard, for the 19 months of Tier 1. What flavor bubbly? We got cherry. Cherry, official sponsor of the stream. Official sponsor of the stream, bubbly, sparkling water beverage. Extremely refreshing. We don't talk about some of the other former sponsors of the stream. We don't need to mention. Certain other big corporate sponsors don't want to pony up anymore. They don't think good old Rob is enough of a big name to be sending beverages. So we're not going to mention certain other previous corporate sponsors. We don't need to get into the details about the breakup that happened with certain other certain other big time corporate energy drink sponsors that used to be big parts of the lore of this program. The memes. No more, though. No more. I've been on a Waterloo sparkling water kick. I don't know if we have that one. The socialist nanny state Canadian government doesn't allow us to have that one. The one
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, Progressive Canuck. Thank you, Progressive Canuck, for the 15 months of Tier 1. Thank you. There's one flavor of or brand of soda water or sparkling water, whatever you want to call it, which I'm often jealous of when I see Americans posting it in on Twitter, in the Discord server, whatever, is that Polar Ice.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Not available here as well.
Sigma tips.
Thank you, Effusive Stoic, for the one entire year of Tier 1. Thank you. The former sponsors: Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, Hugo Boss, Krupp, BlackRock. Exactly, all the big names we know. We all know who's going to come out the big winner of this election: Maduro. Man, we're seeing some real Chad Maduro images. We're seeing some real Chad Maduro images coming out of this Cup 26. And you know what? Here I am yapping away, saying hello, and it's already time for our first guest, folks. It's time for our first guest, which is my friend and yours, Pam Palmater. Let me just fire up my Zoom here. I was here yapping away. I'm here yapping away. I almost blew it. Waiting for Pam to come on. Okay, that's that. Can Pam be new Rob? No, that's not going to happen. No, unfortunately. Pam Palmater doesn't want to be new Rob. Pam wants to be Pam, okay? And we shouldn't be messing around with that. I will turn off the music. But thank you, Dakadude. I will turn it off. Okay. Let's hear from Pam Palmater. I feel like I should get another window of election stuff. The cursed needle. Remember that needle? Remember the Donald Trump election night, that fucking needle? Okay, I texted Pam the link. I gotta send it to her email. Okay. Live broadcasting, folks. Live broadcasting. Okay, that's sent. Here we go. We got Pam Palmater coming on the program in just one moment. I'm going to make all these windows fit on here. Hello, Pam. Hello.
Hey, Rob, how's it going?
Hey, it's going very well. How are you doing,
Nice.
Pam? Thanks for joining
So
us.
we were just like faking that it was taking a while for me to come on. We were really just trying to build up all the suspense.
Exactly. Now everyone's all excited. Everyone's properly excited now.
Oh, well, that's awesome.
I was a little worried about the excitement level. It was low energies in the chat. Now we've pumped it up to our viral marketing scheme.
Yeah, it's all a scheme, man.
Yeah.
I get those corporate sponsors you were talking about.
Exactly. They're abandoning me in droves.
Oh no.
I know.
Wow. So we're in for a night, aren't we?
Yeah. I haven't, I talk about this stuff all the time, but in terms of like the actual midterms, I haven't really looked at polls. I haven't really been keeping up with the horse race aspect of this, these upcoming midterms. Have you been paying attention to that? Like, what's your feeling going into this night?
Well, I think my biggest impression of this is bizarrely the religious nature of it all. Like how all of these weirdos are like praying to God and doing all of this evangelist stuff to get rid of the so-called evil people. And I know there's weirdos at elections. I mean, that's nothing new, but this one just seems to be hardcore. Dear Lord Jesus, God, Lord, put the rightful president back in. And it's just so beyond.
Yeah.
So I'm a little worried about the religious dimension of it. Like how many evangelists are going to get elected, for example?
There's some very weird folks that are running in these elections, and it's discouraging because like there's some people that, some of these candidates, you look at them and they're just like, surely there is no way that this individual can be an elected official in the United States government. Like that would be crazy for that to happen. And lo and behold, it seems to happen pretty often. And it seems like there's a couple of candidates tonight that are possibly going to get in that are pretty outrageous.
Someone like Carrie Lake, for example. I mean, she is off her rocker. I mean, she is pro-Trump. She is pro everything that's bad. She's hanging around with all the supremacists and the haters and some dangerous peeps in the super far right-wing media. I'm thinking that how could someone like that actually get elected? She doesn't have any, I don't know, leadership qualities. She doesn't have any knowledge about the issues that's actually based on fact. I mean, that's really concerning, but she has this massive popularity because, she's stoking the flames of the algorithm with all of her hate and all of that stuff. So,
there's kind of a blueprint for people if they want to become big superstars in the right-wing media sphere right now. So if you follow that Trump line and really boost him and talk about how much you love him and there's no limit to what weird conspiracy theories you can espouse, and people will love you as long as you kind of like toe this line. There's a real audience for that. Trump has kind of proven that. And there's these like acolytes that keep following that path, following that blueprint that's been laid out. And it seems to be like really shows people how they could be successful in this world of like right-wing media and right-wing politics.
Well, and here's the other thing. So, we think about all of these politics, like all the far right and all of the, crazy people who think vaccines are, I don't know, going to mind control us or something. But then you have to really wonder about, okay, A, that they will get elected, and B, what are the policies they're running on? And so Carrie Lake, for example, she's the Republican nominee for Arizona governor. If she gets elected, she wants to create a military blockade of a Native American reservation and make them choose if they're going to be American or Mexican. Like I'm thinking like poor Native American tribes. It's bad enough, but to actually know, oh gosh, if this woman gets elected, now we're going to be invaded by the military.
Yeah, just bizarre. But I mean, this also speaks to a problem with like the Democratic Party and liberal politics in general, right? Where Biden has made certain, I think, like tried to signal to the sort of Native American community, the indigenous community, that he's on their side. Has had people in his cabinet, in the first Native American woman like in his cabinet, which is like that's a big victory, and it's an inspiring thing. At the same time, Biden is someone that like he was vice president in 2014 during Standing Rock under Obama, which was brutally put down by police during the Obama era, and it's like it speaks to this problem with Democratic politics where they try to kind of lean on these identity issues and try to signal to these communities that they're on their side, but when they actually get an opportunity to support these communities with material means, when they're engaging in this like historic, heroic kind of water defender activism, and they oversee this like brutal repression, and it doesn't give them a lot of credibility, even when their opponents are obviously significantly worse.
Well, yeah. So it ends up being that elections end up being more about harm reduction than about voting for any kind of leadership, government, or policy, because everything you said applies to people like Trudeau, for example. Yep. The last thing we want is Pierre Poilievre and the far-right conservatives getting in, but that doesn't give Trudeau a free ride either. Like if you look at Obama, he had better relationships with Native Americans than anybody, like than any former president, actually met with them and hung out with them and talked about them. Yet how do you reconcile that with the fact that he didn't intervene to protect them? But then you have just at the end of his presidency, he puts a stop to what was happening at Standing Rock, puts a stop to the pipeline, knowing that in a few days when Trump gets in, he's just going to let it go ahead. So there's all these inconsistencies. You want to, like, I think our biggest dream is to actually have some kind of leadership that has a good, policy agenda that cares about people and the environment. But I mean, you either get the haters and the wackos, or you get the people who talk really well and do some good. But when it comes to the big substantive stuff, they fall down in the same way as every government does. It's really frustrating. And what's more frustrating to me is when people say, the only way to change things is to vote. I'm like, dude, we've been voting like forever. How long have people been voting? Has anything changed for Native people?
Yeah.
No. I mean, can you imagine sending in the military? And I think it's the Tohono O'odham Native American group too.
Yeah, and like kind of what you're describing, this is a problem just in general with the Biden administration. Like the whole premise, I think, of Biden's sort of political agenda, right, was to try to avoid a horrible outcome tonight. Try to avoid getting rolled over in the midterms, similar to what happened with Obama. Obama had this huge majority, huge mandate, and kind of squandered it. And then was completely destroyed in the midterms and was never really able to implement an agenda after that. And the whole idea that people were kind of like trying to advocate for, this is why I think people supported Bernie Sanders in the Democratic primary, was that you need to have the president come here and like actively push a big progressive, transformative agenda that really helps people, that speaks to people's material needs and actually like makes a meaningful impact in people's lives. And for a long time, Biden, even though they proposed a lot of like big, bold stuff, they never really followed through on any of that. In the last couple of months, they've kind of passed a few things, like a few think that can be construed as being popular or progressive, the student debt stuff, the marijuana stuff, but it's all kind of this last moment sort of half-assed version of these big things. And I don't know if it's going to be enough to avoid a horrible outcome for them, the same outcome that happened with under Obama when they lost their majorities.
Yeah, and like people are faced with like competing ideologies or arguments for why you should vote for these crazy far-right Republicans. So you've got the crazies saying Biden is the devil, he's possessed by demons, He's controlling you through vaccine. You've got that crazy. But then you've got the people that are saying, hey, listen, in order to have fair politics, since Biden has the majority in this institution, then we have to really balance that out with having the majority of the Republicans in the other institution. And for people who don't really study politics or anything, that kind of sounds like maybe it makes a little bit of sense. So my worry is not just the crazies, but also the people that are trying to make this a rationale, as if somehow that would make government go forward in this kind of balanced, holistic way, when we've seen in the past what happens when everything stops, when there's no budget, when nothing gets approved and the whole country comes to a stop. And that's not good for anybody.
Well, it was funny too, because that was kind of Biden's whole pitch when he was getting elected. It's like, I'm going to be able to work with these Republicans. Like, they know me. He's the friend with Mitch McConnell and all these conservative guys that have been in the Senate for decades. And Biden says, I'm going to work with these guys. They're going to have bipartisan. And it's just been hilarious to see that completely fail. He can't even work with people in his own party. He can't even get his entire party on board with his agenda. And now they're kind of promising, like, oh, if you just give us a few more seats, then we're going to be able to do all these good things. And it's kind of this constant excuse from liberals and from Democrats. Like, we really want to do all these big, good things, but unfortunately we just need you to vote a little bit more, and then we're going to be able to do it. Like I talk about often as well with Obama, it's like that a huge majority had 59 senators. And now you have Joe Biden saying, like, if we have 53 senators, then we're going to do all this legislation. But when they had 59, it was still, our hands are tied. We can't do anything. So it's just been funny to see Biden, whose whole idea was like, I'm going to be able to work with these Republicans that I know that I've been hanging out with in the Senate for decades. And they immediately have treated him like he's some radical communist, authoritarian dictator or something. And it's just completely failed, this whole idea.
I don't know how many of these people have been calling him the devil, a demon, possessed. He's like, God is going to send angels to all of the voting polls to make sure that the rightful president gets voted back in, as if this is a presidential election. We know it isn't. These are these midterms, but it's all still very much focused on Trump.
And when Trump, he looms large over it. Like he's made this announcement. I'm going to make a big announcement at Mar-a-Lago, folks. So it just seems like inevitable that he's going to announce that he's running in 2024. And like that's where as much as there's people in the Republican world that have tried to step up and replace him and be the guy that can appeal to that, there's no one else that quite has the same magic that he does with this Republican base. And it just seems like it's sort of an inevitability that he's going to run, and he's going to have a good chance at winning,
unless
which is
he's
amazing.
in jail before then, So
I don't know if we think Trump. Do we think Trump's going to go to jail? I don't know, Pam. It's a nice idea. The idea that when people engage in like widespread criminal behavior, that they have some kind of consequence for it. But it just seems like when you're someone that gets to the level of like cultural and political and power and wealth that like someone like Donald Trump has, it seems like there's just nothing that they can really do. I mean, even if they have an ironclad case against Trump, if they prosecute him, there's millions of people in America that have been completely like programmed to believe that he's the victim of some kind of massive, dangerous conspiracy, and they're going to treat it like it's this big coup that's going on. So even if they wanted to prosecute him, it's like it's going to tear the entire country apart.
Imagine though, so all of these tax evasion cases, he could well go to prison if he was anybody else. But imagine if he does get convicted and it looks based on the evidence that maybe he should, and that someone else would be, imagine putting him to prison. I'm sure every crazy and militant farmer would come out, all those hidden militias hiding in bunkers right now.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure they would drive on their tractors and their trucks, honking their horns all the way to the prison and bust him out. If you think about January 6th, imagine imprisoning Trump, what would happen. No,
exactly. So they're kind of like in this impossible position where even if they wanted to prosecute him or if they had an ironclad case, it's going to be like they probably don't want to for a number of reasons. But also what you're talking about too is just the people that have this kind of like prophecy that talk about Trump and talk about these issues as if it's this kind of like ordained, like divinely ordained situation. part of that is just the way that like these kinds of conspiracies have really like exploded into the mainstream. It's always been a part of conservative politics, the kind of conspiracy right. But I mean, just the idea of QAnon and Pizzagate and all that stuff was such a weird kind of niche. 4 years ago, for example, in the previous midterms, and the idea that like there would be like elected officials or that this would be like a mainstream thing was so unthinkable. And now you have like candidates that are espousing the same kind of rhetoric. You have Trump himself that's like openly kind of courting these people. It's, and as much as social media companies and tech companies try to do what they can to like tamp down on this, it's like it doesn't, people have this, this has really grown up and turned into like a big pervasive sort of element of American politics that's just only going to seems like it's going to get bigger.
Do you mean the formal social media known as Twitter before it was bought and owned by Elon Musk? Is that the kind of social media you're talking about?
Yeah. Well, now it's on Rumble. It's on all the concert Parlay and all the and Truth Social. Where they respect free speech.
Oh my gosh, it just reminds me of like what's happening here. So you saw the truckers and hate groups laying siege to Ottawa and committing all these crimes and assaulting people and all of this other stuff. Nazi flags flying everywhere. And who does Pierre Poilievre hire as his communications director? The woman who was out there honking those horns with the transport saying, yeah, like, let's Guantanamo Bay Trudeau. Honest to goodness. And so you would never expect us to be in this place. But here we are, the craziness in the US, and now it's craziness in Canada.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that's the thing. It's like, I saw people comparing like the CUPE strike to being like, well, why are you supporting this, but you didn't support the trucker convoy? And that was kind of one of the points that I was trying to make. It's like, well, the CUPE workers are like trying to strike to get a living wage.
Yes.
Whereas these truckers are like, they're occupying Ottawa because they think Trudeau and George Soros are trying to destroy the white race through immigration.
The World Economic Forum.
Yeah. So it's not exactly the same thing. And people just like, if you support one, you have to support the other. Like I was saying before, if people in the trucker convoy were actually like truckers that were saying we would like to be paid better because like truckers should be paid more, that would be one thing we could talk about that. But that's not what that was about. It was about these deranged right-wing conspiracies.
Literally deranged. Like, and I was there the whole day during the CUPE strike on Friday. I think I sent you a text because I was
we tried to watch your video on TikTok, but we couldn't quite work it out how it worked.
Oh darn it. Yeah. So like recorded all of the speeches and they were so powerful. There's no hatred, no calling for the media to be dissolved, no asking for anyone to go to Guantanamo Bay. It was, hey, I'm a janitor at the school. I deserve a living wage. Hey, I'm the English as a second language assistant. Like all of these, like everyday people that we forget about. We think it's just teachers, but there's all these other support systems down there. And I think the most powerful thing is that look at CUPE, down Queen's Park. They're walking in with their flags. You compare that to the truckers, bringing in their trucks and parking them and doing like peeing and pooping all over the place. And the people that are supporting them, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, hate groups, and all of that. Who's supporting CUPE? Well, Unifor walked in. Steel workers walked in. Transit workers walked in. Teachers unions walked in. Faculty, like people saying, we support you. We support everybody for a living wage and safe working conditions because they're very much concerned about all the sickness of COVID. These are very, very legitimate people things. Whereas, like, honest to goodness, I don't know what's happening in the United States. This like religious, super religious frenzy. I thought it was just a couple of them. People like Nick Fuentes, who is just off his rocker. But really, these candidates are buying into that, or at least promoting it that way. Like, if you love God, if you support God, then you have to vote for me. It's as if God... no matter what God you believe in or if you don't believe in any, as if some higher power is going to be like, I'm going to be there at the elections, I'm going to be there, as if
yeah. Donald Trump, famous like devout religious man, very pious,
Oh my.
Speaking of CUPE, I know we're talking about, this is supposed to be about the midterms. We can talk about Canadian stuff too. Because, we cover these things and we follow these things as people in Canada, because like what happens in the United States government has this kind of impact on the whole world. We've seen how this shift into the conspiratorial far right has impacted politics in this country and is only going to continue to. But regarding that QP strike as well, though, like, were you disappointed that they went back to work this week? I know it led to the Ford government saying they were going to repeal the bill to legislate them back to work, but it seemed like there was a lot of momentum there that maybe they've taken a step back. I don't know, and like it's not clear right now whether they're going to get the deal they were asking for. Like, what was your feeling on that?
So there's a multitude of considerations here, right? Whenever you're protesting, unfortunately, you have to consider what's the public opinion right now? What's the opinion of all of the other unions? Do we have the support? What does this mean for the future? So they're considering all of these things. And I think like it has to be that the only reason why they went back to work on the word of Doug Ford is because they didn't want to send a message to the public. Well, we asked Doug Ford to repeal the legislation. Now he says he is, but we're still going to strike. Because even though that wouldn't be the case, like it would be, show it first, like repeal the legislation and then we'll come back to work. It could be used by Ford to convince parents, see, there's nothing you can do to help, to make anybody happy. And so there's always that risk when you're doing public relations. And unfortunately, that's part of it. So I think that's probably why they did it. Because, it's not like they were fearful of the fines because he's going to repeal the legislation. And even if he didn't repeal the legislation, like all of the unions that were there committed to making sure that no one in CUPE had to pay a single fine, that they would fight it in litigation or they would all come together and pay for it themselves so that no one in CUPE would. So it's not the monetary thing. I really think it's more of we don't want to wear out our support because right now it's really good. We don't want to give Ford anything to, I don't know, bitch about. I can only assume that's the case. If I was their communications person, that would have been a very serious consideration, but I am disappointed. I would have said, okay, as soon as it's repealed, we're back.
Yeah. That's the thing. I understand that it is tricky because parents are really tired of schools being closed, and it is really difficult for people. I guess that's the point of a strike in the first place, right? Is that, it is going to be difficult for people. And the question is whether the blame is going to be put on them or put on the Ford government. But, I'm interested to see where it goes. Like, I hope they really get the deal they were asking for because, it's about really vital and essential workers, custodians and librarians and early education assistants being paid a living wage. And on Ontario, housing is prohibitively expensive, extremely expensive. So,
and here's the thing, Rob, I also feel personally vindicated because I don't work for CUPE. I'm not a member of CUPE or anything, but I support, human rights and workers' rights, fair wages and all of that stuff. I was doing media commentary in the lead up to this CUPE protest. And I was always paired with a conservative, right? Or a former conservative head or something. And they're like, oh, no one's in support of this CUPE strike. The parents are all mad at CUPE. None of the other unions are going to support CUPE because they all think that public unions are spoiled. They're not going to want to get, messed up in all of that. And I said, I think you're really underestimating the fact that this is the notwithstanding clause and what it could mean for every other union in the country. Oh, no. People are going to support CUPE. I was so glad to actually be on the ground to see all of the unions walk in and each one of them make a speech saying, we're supporting you, whether we're in BC, whether we're in Manitoba, whether we're in the Maritimes. This is an attack on the right to strike. And there is a right to strike. So I'm glad they did that. I think it sent a powerful message to every other province, too, that, when push comes to shove, even though some of those unions, good grief, supported Ford in the election. And I just thought, you idiots, with all due respect. I know you want contracts and stuff, but you idiots, Come on. No, sorry, not Trump. Ford is going to do this.
Well, you might, it's a Freudian slip because Ford is, we talk about how we're influenced by American politics. And I think Ford is a figure that he's around because like the groundwork has been laid by Trump and by this kind of populist right-wing movement that has allowed space for people like Doug Ford to win elections like this and put working people in this position.
Mm-hmm. I know. So I'm just glad they came out, because it was a sharp warning to people. They rescinded, so all of those unions that supported Ford officially rescinded that support, like by letters. So they were all out, and then they all came to support CUPE, and all of the ones from like across the country who aren't even related. I mean, what does this have to do with steel workers, right?
Yeah.
What does this have to do with Unifor? What does that have to do? But they all came, and I thought that's, think about what Stephen Harper did after 10 years of raining terror on First Nations. Well, you put us to a boiling point, and we had idle no more for months and months and months and months, right? People thought, oh, Native people, they're too oppressed to rise up in any serious way. Well, I think this is what is the start of the unions. And I think Ford must have realized, oh shit, we made all the wrong calculations.
Yeah.
Because parents were also speaking there, saying all the parents' committees and stuff support CUPE, that shit, we're now making this national momentum of unions and coming together. And where else are we going to get hit? Because at that CUPE rally, I think it was the transit workers, Metrolink, I can't remember which one it was, but they said, as an announcement today, we want to give you the first word here. We don't accept the deal, and we're going on strike. I think it was Monday or whatever day that's coming up that they're going to do. And so it just goes to show, when you empower unions that way, then maybe they're not going to take your shit offer the next time, because they think there's no help.
Yeah, of course. And that's the thing. It's like from Ford's perspective, the conservatives' perspective, like the last thing they need is a militant labor movement rising up in this country, which actually is the thing that this country does need. So you'd like to see more of that. Anyway, we got sidetracked with Canadian stuff. But this is important to talk about anyways. And again, talking about how it's influenced by America. There's all these kind of right to work laws. I mean, that was kind of like the groundwork for that was laid in the United States as well. That it's a playbook that Ford is following now. So just final thoughts. I know you're going to do your own stream soon, Pam, so I don't want to keep you too much longer. Final thoughts about what you think we're going to see in the midterm election. It's the midterm election spectacular. What is your final analysis on what we're going to see this evening? Is Biden going to be completely steamrolled like the way it looked like it was kind of going to be for the last couple of months? Do you think it's going to be?
I'm worried
what do you think's going to happen?
That the crazies are either going to side with the crazies, and those are Republicans. And then the people on the fence who are thinking, well, maybe there should be some balance in government, might side with the Republicans, not for any other reason. And then you have the Republicans siding with the Republicans. I'm very concerned that you're going to see a lot of Republicans and evangelists elected.
Yeah.
And obviously that's a concern.
Well, even if it's not like this big red wave like some people were predicting, this whole idea about disputing and denying election results, that's going to be a big factor as well, because even if it isn't a red wave and Democrats do better than they're planning on, there's going to be all kinds of races that I think are going to follow that Trump playbook of disputing the results and not conceding and mucking it up that way. They're already laying the groundwork for that. Yeah.
They're already saying it on the radio and all their interviews. I just listened to one today saying, hey, listen, if we don't get the red wave that we know we've already won because we know the voters, then we're going to challenge it. It's fake news, false, stolen election. But if we win, we'll know that it was a fair election. How do you argue with that kind of logic?
Well, that's it. It's like the logic that they're the framework that they're kind of like advancing is just like the only legitimate elections are the one where we win, and when we don't win, then it's fake and fraudulent. Unfortunately, that's the thing. You would like to see the Democrats try to position themselves above that. They're kind of doing the same thing though. They're launching all the news stories about the Russian disinformation is back, and because they're expecting that a great result as well. So they're also laying the groundwork just as similar to how they did in 2016. Well, if there's an election result that doesn't go our way, it's because there's all this foreign interference and all these other excuses, rather than talking about their own policy and their own agenda and the reason that people are apathetic. That has to do with their own lack of action, So it's like if they want to have credibility about that kind of electoral integrity, they have to stop doing the exact same thing.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. Listen, if a whole whack of them get in, that's just going to fuck up government. But if just a few of the weirdos get in, but they're not enough to actually stall bills passing or stall budgets, then they can just like form their own like little hate club or whatever and go to their evangelist meetings and all that other stuff, conspiracy theory stuff. But it's the numbers that concern me.
Yeah. Well, that's
so maybe it won't be a red wave. But
I don't know.
A big number.
Yeah. I don't know if it's going to be a red wave, but I think it seems likely that they will take the House. And even with some of the people that they're running in the Senate, these awful candidates, it's still a possibility that they could take that as well, which is going to completely hamper. If Biden couldn't pass the agenda that he wanted with 50 votes in the Senate and the House, they're certainly not going to be able to do anything if they lose the House and if they lose the Senate. So even if it might not be an absolute destruction, red wave, that's going to be hamper their ability to do pretty much anything.
Well, now I'm depressed.
Yeah.
Going into my stream, now I'm fully depressed.
Well, good.
I feel like this is what's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, that's the effect that I have on people when I do this commentary, Pam. Thanks for joining us on the stream. It was short notice, and I appreciate you coming on to speak to us. Thank you, Pam. Pam's going to be doing her own stream as well, so make sure everyone gives Pam a follow.
Yeah, we're gonna watch all the funny whack jobs doing their thing on video.
Good, yeah.
So that's my like mental health relief, just watching them, laughing at them.
Yeah. All right, Pam. So that sounds like it's going to be great. But thanks for joining us. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Oh, you know what? I probably shouldn't have ended that meeting. Oh well, I can do another one. No estimates yet. No estimates yet. Let me see. We can call up some
Pennsylvania, a lot of folks watching this one, and you're going to be waiting a while. It is too early to call. John Fetterman, Mehmet Oz battling it out for the open
seeing if we get some results
in Pennsylvania and in New Hampshire. Another one with some late momentum for the Republican in the race, Maggie Hassan, the incumbent, holding on at this hour, but it is too early to call.
We've got a projection in the Alabama Senate race. Katie Britt, former chief of staff to the outgoing senator, will go on to victory tonight. That's the projection. In Kentucky, too early to call. Richard Blumenthal trying to hang on to his seat in Connecticut. Illinois, the Senate race there is too early to call.
Let's go to Maryland. There's a Senate race there. It is too early to call. Chris Van Hollen, the incumbent, leading at this hour. In Missouri, same situation. Too early to call, but Eric Schmidt, the Republican, leading at this hour. And in Oklahoma, James Lankford will return to the United States Senate in his race.
And in the other Oklahoma race, Mark Wayne Mullen, the projected winner over Democrat Kendra Horn. In Georgia Senate, this is one that may keep us here a while, even weeks. Too early to call on that Senate showdown between Raphael
I know community member Red Scary was really heavily involved in this race.
Ohio Senate. Right now, it is too early to call. You can see Tim Ryan, the Democrat, leading, but that race too early to call.
Let's go to North Carolina. The Senate
like those races, I think, are really indicative of like how this is going to go. You know,
against Ted Budd. So here's
and the Fetterman and Dr. Oz race. Like these candidates are so awful. Herschel Walker, Dr. Oz, and J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance, who was like supposed to be this like Trump whisperer. He's supposed to understand the working class, the working man, and all this stuff. And he's just another one of these like completely phony billionaire-funded reactionaries. You know, he's been completely exposed. He's a terrible speaker. He's not compelling. He's not charismatic, and he's still probably going to win. Like that's the amazing thing about some of these races is just seeing how terrible some of these candidates are that Republicans are running. Like if they don't win the Senate tonight, it's going to be like a historic own goal. The fact that they ran Dr. Oz and Vance and Herschel Walker in this race, like it'll be but like they still might, even despite all that, they actually still might. He's outright deranged, absolutely. Like it's unbelievable. Really curious to see if Oz pulls it out, and if he does, it's totally because of Fetterman's stroke coverage. Yeah, it's like Dr. Oz, like a guy who doesn't live, who's like literally just doesn't live in the state, a literal puppy killer, like Benny is saying, an actual like dog murderer. He's like this dog murdering sociopath. and he still might win. How much of that has to do with the Fetterman stroke coverage? Probably a lot, like a probably significant amount.
It is too early to call that race. We'll go to South Carolina now.
You see the like the like. We were talking the other day about the Canadian media establishment, this obsession with being a nonpartisan, the obsession with being, balanced. And I think a lot of those attacks on Fetterman were just like, this is going so badly, so we just have to attack this guy to give it some kind of competitive sense, or to shut down any criticisms that we might be liberal or progressive in some way. So they've got to go after him to ensure that there's some kind of balance to their coverage of it.
I think there's a developing story going on in that.
But that is Duttmeister. That is true as well. It was a Reddit campaign as well. I think people can, if you're on Twitter all the time, you think Fetterman is just completely dominating. But how many people how many actual voters in Pennsylvania are checking Fetterman's Twitter dunks on Dr. Oz? Probably not that many. Probably not that many. Fetterman, also a big Zionist, also attacked Dr. Oz about China, about Dr. Oz's his shit's getting manufactured in China, which, as we've talked about before, I'm not going to defend Dr. Oz here, but it wasn't Dr. Oz that shipped American manufacturing to China. That was a bipartisan process that took place that the Democrats and Republicans both gleefully participated in. He is a China bad candidate. He is. Yeah.
So that is
anyway, chin chin, folks.
Now, here's a sign that it's probably not going to be a tsunami, because Jennifer Wexton's been hanging on, and again, the vote that will be coming in next is going to be bluer.
That's such a real factor too. Twitter libs are also going to freak out about Beto losing because he's popular online, even though he's behind 10 in the polls. Yeah, and he said the F word in that video. He does TikToks. He goes those viral tweets. So how could he possibly lose?
There's a developing story in Georgia. So we've got the Senate results. I want you to keep an eye on
just a perennial loser. It's true. He gives ladies calf cramps. Hey, Clueless, I'll have you know that, is it Leah McGrath? Was that the calf? She's actually my personal friend, so she follows me on Twitter, so we don't make fun of her for that, because we're actually quite close, so let's cool it on some of the calf cramp comments about my close personal friend Leah McGrath. Please.
Because what you've done here is, again, let me show you. So I wish
Leia, babe, you're normal. It's true.
In 7.0.
The stuff with and Stacey Abrams as well, as much as she's been positioned as being this the election whisperer or something. She's positioned as being this fucking political genius mastermind for the Democrats. It'll be interesting to see what happens with her race if she doesn't win, how they're going to internalize that.
Long hair star. Thick in the hips, come get in my car. For a yellow bone, long hair star.
How could this guy possibly lose?
In the hips,
look at this.
Come get in my car.
How could this man possibly lose? Look at that face. Jesus. Why did you play this? Well, someone else sent it to me. We're playing viral content here.
Solidifying his second term here.
DeSantis wins, no big surprise there. Although, as I was saying with Pam, DeSantis is making this effort to be the new conservative golden boy. He's trying to copy Trump's cadence or whatever, and he doesn't have the sauce. He doesn't have it. And Trump's already Trump will just absolutely annihilate this guy if they're ever in any kind of head-to-head debate.
Here, of course, DeSantis having a huge lead on his
DeSanctimonious
to victory, but it also is potentially a springboard to what's next. I know it's early, but many people talking right now about what DeSantis could say here about his future plans. We know that former President Donald Trump has set his sights on Ron DeSantis, someone who's widely talked about as someone who could be the heir apparent to the Trump mantle.
The base is going to follow what Trump says. If Trump runs, no one's going to beat DeSantis will not beat him.
Saying that he could be the next wave of people who could represent the Republican Party in the coming presidential primary.
For for Republicans, the money ticket is Trump and DeSantis running together.
The one that comes up in conservative straw polls when I'm talking
Trump
to
and DeSantis running
donors,
together is going to would be a problem for Democrats.
This race here could be the perfect springboard into a presidential campaign, and so a lot of eyes
like
on the
Biden
states
as kind of a
behind me
lame
for
dunk,
when
like
he comes and
limping
gives this
into a
address,
presidential
both what he
election
says about the near
with 2
term
years where he
and
hasn't
also
done
his
fucking
future
anything
term plans. You gotta
because
imagine
there's
that there are a
because
lot of
whatever
eyes in
happens
Mar-a-Lago
tonight.
watching what happens here in
Trump,
Tampa tonight.
Biden limping into
That's the other
2024,
race that
trying
may
to
be
sell
in
people
offing.
on 4 more years of Biden when he's like 85 or whatever it is.
Check this out.
For those in the DeSantis
If Trump and
versus Trump
DeSantis are running
swing
against
states,
that, it's going to be a
Palm Beach County,
bloodbath.
that's home
Big
county.
Dem County, just to remind people how big of a Dem County it is, I want to show you, right? Biden won the county by 13 points. Look, DeSantis is wrong, but DeSantis is going to carry Donald Trump's home county.
All right.
So, just something to just file that away in the ongoing Trump-DeSantis feud.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on that. Let's go to Kerry Sanders. He's in Orlando, Florida, the headquarters for the Democratic Senate candidate Val Demings, who did not win tonight. She actually outspent Senator Marco Rubio, Kerry Sanders, but did not bring it across the finish line.
She must have been
Yeah,
not. She must have been.
She is here.
Not,
She's yet to come out. Her campaign has
well,
no
wasn't she like a
comment,
cop?
but
The person running against
say
Marco Rubio.
they are devastated
She's like a
by
cop.
this was
She
not
probably wasn't mean enough to
unexpected.
Castro.
Senator Marco Rubio
They're still
will
not
go
able to
back
win
for
in
a
Florida
third
because of those
term,
comments
and
Bernie
the
made years
analysis
ago
of
about
all the votes
Cuban
here,
literacy
what may be
programs.
most interesting is that the Republican
How dare he.
Party in the state actually was
Joe being
able
hidden
to
for 2 years,
bring
except trying to
in
start World War
voters who
III. Yeah,
typically
exactly.
would vote for the Democrats. 18%
That's pretty
of the
much
state
what the
being
next couple of years are looking like,
Hispanic, and
depending
many
on what
of
happens
those
tonight.
may have crossed over from their Democratic registrations, voting in the Republican race here for, in this case, Marco
The state is
Rubio.
truly ghoulish. It
There's
is.
been a lot
Like I've been
of
saying,
effort by
Democrats
the
just need to
Republican
give up on
Party.
Florida.
At
Just
the same
fucking
time, the
forget about
Democrats
it.
themselves have
Just
said
forget about Florida.
their messaging to
Stop trying to
voters in
appeal to
general,
reactionary
but
Floridians.
specifically
Like
to
we saw those
Hispanic or Latino
that
voters
poll
has
of
been
like
somewhat of a miss, and that may be
Brazilian
reflected here. What's
expats
perhaps
in
most
Florida,
important is,
and
as
how
we
they
see
voted for
Governor Ron
Bolsonaro
DeSantis
in the Brazilian election by like
back to office,
85
and
to
that was not
15% or something like
unexpected.
that.
And now
Stop trying to
Marco
appeal to these
Rubio
people.
into a third term.
Stop trying to appeal to these gusanos and
Blue,
fucking
then
reactionary
purple,
absolute
appeared to be
freaks
red. It may
in
now
Florida.
very well
It's
be
not going to
that
happen.
this is a
Stop trying to make
Republican
Florida
state,
happen.
third largest state in the country, which plays a big role in the electoral votes when it comes to the presidential election in 2 years. Guys?
All right, Kerry Sanders at Val Demings' headquarters in Orlando, Florida. Again, NBC News projecting Marco Rubio handily wins a third term in the United States Senate. We got a call for you here. New Hampshire, Chris Sununu, the incumbent there, will get a second term as governor.
All right, we want to check in on a couple of big races, obviously, in
Hey, qu'est-ce qui se passe?
Pennsylvania tonight, and that's where Peter Alexander is. Peter, what were the wins going into tonight?
I just sent our friend Ben the Zoom link there. The next big guest. The next A-list guest joining us, Bleep Blomp Ben.
Dead heat as they come into election night. I've been speaking to campaign aides close to Dr. Oz, and they say that they feel extremely confident.
Imagine what a damning statement it is about the voting base of a state of just mentioning a demonstrably true thing about Cuba that happens to be positive means you can never win that state. Like, get rid of that state if that's the case. Only insane people live there. I mean, I'm sure there's many wonderful people that live there, but they are the minority. They are in the minority. That is for sure.
That's in the northeast part of the state, and there it's notable that a county that Donald Trump won twice has been having some issues because they've now extended voting there for an additional 2 hours because many of the polling places
This is some very
have a paper shortage. And then you go to Philadelphia, which is
This is some serious copium by Jen Psaki. Like, this is all they care about, right? This is all they care about. No, she says, no races have been called yet, and they won't be for a while, but just some facts for your back pocket. Bill Clinton lost 54 House seats in 94. Barack Obama lost 63 in 2010, and both went on to win re-election. What does it matter if they win re-election? What does it matter if they win re-election if they can't actually pass legislation? This is the only thing they care about. The blue guys still might win, though. They still might win. What does that actually mean for actually anybody that might be impacted by these, their complete inability to pass an agenda? What about that, though? What does that matter? This is what everyone's concerned about. That's right. Here, let's bring on our friend Ben. Hold on one sec. Let me get this over here.
Oh, my sound okay?
Yeah, you're good. Hello, Ben. What's up?
Oh no.
Do you not hear me? Hello. Hello, check.
Oh, what the heck?
No problem.
Microphone, headset. There we go.
Hello, you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
There we go. All right. Sorry about that. Like my audio device is on Zoom. I haven't used Zoom in a million years. Yeah, that's what we were all really concerned about is Biden's re-election chances. That's what, I mean.
My heart was in my mouth about this, so I'm thankful to hear from Jen Psaki because that's really what matters about all this, so thankfully.
Yeah. Like, okay, there's so much to say about this election. Like, I literally, my blood is like boiling, right? And you all know that I'm not a person to swear, right? But I maybe tweeted a swear word or two today because the Democrats spent almost $20 million on election deniers and now are already turning around trying to blame defund the police for their failure today.
Yeah. Well, that's the question, right? Is we all know that it's not going to be a great result, I think, for the Democrats. I don't think anyone expects them to actually increase their the numbers of people they have in the Senate or the House. The absolute best case scenario is that they manage to hold on to these two chambers. But that's really the big question is what they're going to blame. Are they going to look in the mirror and say maybe we should have passed that big agenda that we were campaigning on, the Build Back Better agenda that we talked a lot about? And are they going to be able to blame themselves for their inability to do that? Or are they going to say it was defund the police, it was trans activists, it was it was Russia, it was China, it was Iran, whatever else? Or is that what's going to happen? That's the question.
No, literally, especially focusing on trans folks, right? And a lot of the reporting has been talking about trans people, but it also affects gay people too. Republicans have already introduced legislation and they have 30 or 40 co-sponsors. And what this legislation does is it does two things. One, it defines any mention of gayness or transness as inherently sexually explicit.
Yeah.
And then threatens to take away federal funding from any institution, public or private, that even could possibly theoretically at some point, maybe perhaps, have anybody under the age of 10 hear or see the mention even of gay or trans folks. So think about that. Does Google receive federal funds? Does YouTube receive federal funds? Would YouTube then be forced to either demonetize or completely remove or age restrict any content with any gay person or any trans person in it? This bill would effectively ban gay people and trans people from much of public life, right? For much of public life. And Hillary Clinton literally said, oh, that's not a winning issue for us. Trans people, not a winning issue for us. And so if look, if you want to paint Republicans as unhinged, you don't need to give them $20 million to do it. You can just point to the things they're doing and say that, right? You can say they're literally doing blood libel on Tucker Carlson, right? But I haven't even seen why is Joe Biden not saying Tucker Carlson is literally doing blood libel every single night? These people are Nazis, right? I know he's oh, they're proto-fascist, they're semi-fascist. No, they're just literal fascists spewing literal blood libel. It doesn't get more obvious than this.
I mean, this is the really scary thing about, what this kind of panic, this moral panic that has been really ginned up by conservatives in the United States. It's genuinely very alarming the way that they've used trans issues as this wedge, suggesting the idea that any mention, you mentioned, any mention of trans issues is some kind of inherently corrupting or inherently sexual and deviant, the way that they've been kind of framing these things. And it seems like it's working. It's working, this campaign, to create this big moral panic about this. And I don't think Democrats or liberals, even though it's you can give them some credit for making these cursory gestures and saying, Joe Biden stands with you and all those things. Like, that's not nothing, but I don't think they've really responded to the level of like trans panic that these like these reactionary conservatives have been building. And it's like, it's a very scary situation if they do gain political control of the House of the Senate, like what they can actually do with that. Cause it's not like there's people in the Republican Party that are not just like saying this stuff to win votes, but they're true believers and are really going to use this power if they win tonight, really going after trans people and trans kids. It's like a really scary situation.
Yeah, it's legitimately terrifying. And because the thing is, right, if Republicans win the House and the Senate, like we already saw, literally Joe Biden as a Democratic senator went out of his way to make a deal behind Obama's back to gut Medicare, Medicaid, and like those programs, right? So literally he threw poor folks and old folks completely under the bus. Do you think that he wouldn't throw trans people under a bus for some sort of grand compromise with the Republicans, right? Like that's what, like, and this is just, it's just so frustrating because they're so desperate to blame everybody on the left. And I really think one of the reasons why we've seen such failure from the Democratic Party is I think they have a recruiting problem. And it's not that there's not people that want to run. It's not that there's not people that want to run for office or make a difference or whatever. The problem is that the people that want to run for office want to make a difference. And like, aside from Pete Buttigieg, the Democrats are having like a difficult time finding people that are as shitty as they are to replace them.
Yeah. Well, they have no bench, right? It's like, I've talked about it before. The whole 2020 primary was all about anointing like the next generation of Democrats that can like win elections for them. And everyone just failed miserably. Everyone fell completely on their face. They've tried to position Beto as that person. They've tried Buttigieg. They've tried Kamala. Kamala's incredibly unpopular. No one that they've kind of thrown at the wall has like stuck with people that has made any kind of impact and has demonstrated that they can actually win elections. So now you have this like aging Biden. He's going to, I don't know what's going to be 84 going into the next election, like limping in, not being able to accomplish anything. They've got no one that can like conceivably replace him. And meanwhile, you have Republicans that are like using LGBTQIA communities as this wedge issue and are really targeting them. And it's like it really seems like they're heading towards a really disastrous kind of situation.
No, seriously, especially when you look at, I mean, if you look at the way that they treat like AOC and especially Ilhan Omar, right? Like Ilhan Omar, my representative, right, who I voted for today, literally, like she just says, hey, I think Palestinians are like human beings and deserve human rights. She didn't even say like Ilhan Omar is not out there, right, saying from like, oh, I forgot what the line is, like from the river to the sea or whatever. Like she's not even saying anything like that. She's just saying like, stop.
It would be cool if she did.
Literally stealing their homes and stop bulldozing their homes and killing people in Palestine. And then like you have Nancy Pelosi and all of the media turning around, screaming at them, like screaming, like saying, oh, you're so anti-Semitic, this, that, or the other thing. Like, and I just to be clear, think of all the media organizations that called Ilhan Omar anti-Semitic.
Yeah, for questioning the Israel lobby, for suggesting that the Israel lobby had some kind of impact on legislation in the United States government. Not exactly a controversial statement.
Literally. But that's what's so wild is because MSNBC literally just fired one of their hosts for criticizing Tucker Carlson too hard, right? And I'm actually, oddly enough, just like as a random aside, I'm actually in the middle of reading Inventing Reality by Michael Parenti now. And he talks about this a lot, how like, there's just this extreme bias in the media where, I mean, literally, you'll have Republicans spewing blood libel. You'll have like literally a puppy killer. I mean, like that's cartoonishly evil. Like if you were writing like a hokey Superman comic book from like the 1970s, like you'd be like, I don't know, killing puppies. Like I get that he's evil.
We're laying it on a little thick here. I don't know.
Laying it a little thick, and he has a chance. Literally, Dr. Oz has a chance because like John Fetterman has a disability. And that is the only news that we see. Oh, John Fetterman has a little bit of like a stutter, or he's stumbling through speech because he literally had a stroke, but in every other way is perfectly capable of doing the job, right? That's what they freak out about it. It's like the end of the world, the idea of somebody having a disability. But
meanwhile, there's all these people, and meanwhile, there's people in Congress and the Senate that are like 90 that don't even know where they are. They're like, oh, that's fine. It's fine to have that. Yeah.
Literally. Oh my God. And it's just like, I just can't, like, so yeah, this whole election just has me in a rage because like the Democrats could have won this, right? Like they could have, like, first and foremost, voting rights. Like the reason why, you know, the clip you were just showing, they're talking about, oh, Florida's a blowout. It used to be a swing state. Yeah, that's because they're literally terrorizing people. They literally had police officers, like first they set up a trap. They literally set up a trap. They said, if you're a prior felon, we are not going to tell you whether or not you are allowed to vote. And if you do vote, we're going to send somebody to arrest you. So it's a random lottery of people with prior felonies. And then they wonder, right? There's all these people in Florida that are like, can I have the right to vote? Right? Like, can I vote? I literally don't know. The literal government won't tell me whether or not. And in some cases, the government literally told people they could, and then they later got arrested. And so, like, there's this active terror campaign that's being waged by the Republicans right now in Florida, but like you don't see them talking about this in election coverage. You literally don't see them talking about this in election coverage. You just see, oh, I guess the, you know, people have chosen and they just really love Ron DeSantis. No, they're literally stopping people from voting. Yeah. They like,
well, yeah. and that's kind of that's what we're talking about from moment one with the Biden administration, right? Was just like, with the actual stuff that they campaigned on, the whole Build Back Better framework, like there was some actually genuinely some big, bold, transformative stuff in there. The PRO Act and all this stuff. The child tax credit, which they bragged about slashing childhood poverty, and they just get rid of it. And they wonder why like people aren't excited about voting for the Democratic Party. Yeah, they literally increased child poverty on their watch. Their whole campaign, it's like that was the whole thing, is like if they had actually delivered on some of these big promises right now, they could be like in a very good position and position themselves in a way that they are not going to get rolled, or they're not going to lose whatever ability they have to still legislate. But they just failed to do that. They got completely like, it seemed almost like a stage managed thing with Manchin and everything, where they allowed Manchin to get in there and just be the one, the villain of the day to say no to their whole agenda, similar to how people like Joe Lieberman did in the past. And you know, they all the big bold agenda that they campaigned on that would have really helped people's lives, they didn't do any of it. And now they're looking around and they're facing this result, which is probably not going to be good, and wondering like, what happened here? Like, it must be because of defund the police. It must be because of like the left that this has happened.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is being underevaluated as like, because if you look at the charts, you'll see that Biden and a lot of the Democrats were doing really, really well. And then all of a sudden they drop, right? This is what's so amazing. It's the fake outs, right? Like where Joe Biden does this whole thing where he's like, we might legalize weed and we might let people out of prison. Oh, fake out. None of that's going to happen. Wow. Yeah. We specifically designed the policies and all of this stuff so that nothing would actually happen. Oh, and it's like, what the hell, man? Like, you promised this. You have the power to do this. You even say that you're literally doing that. So like when you do that, the people who wanted you to actually push that policy hate you, and the people who didn't want you to push that policy also hate you because they're unhinged and they think that you let thousands of people out of prison, but you didn't let anybody out of prison who then can't turn around and vote for you because they didn't get pardoned in the first place. So what are you doing? Literally, like this. And so like there's so many things that Joe Biden promised and refused to deliver. And then there's these like weird pulling the rug out of people's feet, like with the student loans thing, where they're like, oh, we're going to forgive this many student loans. Oh, like half of you, actually, we just changed it, won't get your student loans forgiven because technically you got this type of loan as opposed to this type of loan. And so like, it's just
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah.
Well, that's the amazing thing. Like both student loan forgiveness and marijuana, those are two things that Biden could have done without. It doesn't matter about Manchin. It doesn't matter about Republicans or whatever. They could have just rescheduled marijuana and decriminalized it right away. They could have had widespread like forgiveness of people, and they try to forgiveness of criminal records and these kinds of things, records expunged, and they kind of frame what they did as that when it's not that. It's this half-assed kind of neoliberal version of that pisses off all the same people. The right uses it as this in their propaganda and frames it as being this like big giveaway. Biden's giving weed to criminals or whatever. They could have forgiven, so much more debt, but they do this very specific, very means tested version of it that helps a few people, certainly, but nowhere near the same level that what they could have done easily just with the stroke of a pen. And then they're going to, if things don't go well tonight, they're going to look at these things and be like, we were too progressive. We gave too much away. And they're not going to make this calculation that's like maybe this like half-assed version of these things that we did that appealed to no one and just made everyone mad is the reason that this has happened. They're not able to make this calculation though.
And then they turn around and blame the left and they say this is because we defunded the police. And then they say it's because of like rising crime rates or something like that, when like crime rates are stable. And this was actually really funny because you have a lot of people who will like talk about these crime rates. And if you look, and like this is the thing, right? Like if you actually sit down and explain it, it doesn't take that much time. And people listen when the president says something. So if you say, look, police departments across the country are reporting that there's higher crime rates. But when we actually go to crime rate surveys and victimization surveys, the victimization surveys actually say that the same number of people have been the victim of crimes as before. It's just that police are over-reporting it now. And so this is pretty clear evidence that these Trump-supporting police officers, many of whom literally were there storming the Capitol on January 6th, don't like the Biden administration, don't like Democrats, and literally think that there's some weird conspiracy theory to turn everybody transgender and to make gay frogs, right? So these unhinged police officers with like Nazi tattoos are running around falsifying this data because police departments have got caught falsifying data. Like this is something that we just know very well. Like in Minneapolis, they literally, like the whole crime of carjacking, people talk about how carjacking is skyrocketed in Minneapolis. They literally created a brand new category of crime specifically for carjackings and then said all of a sudden it's skyrocketed. Oh my God, can you believe? There's like, it's been stable. All of this has been stable. And when you actually looked at victimization rates, it's clear. And so, it doesn't take time to explain that, like, look, there's a lot of police departments that are literally lying about the data. But in order to do that, Joe Biden would have to admit that police officers are capable of lying, something that we all know, those of us who live in real life, but because Democrats live in fantasy land, they can never admit.
Yep. Yeah, very true. Very true. So Ben, we've got our friend Juniper joining us. Do you want to stick around?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, if I'm not stepping on toes.
No, of course not. So Juniper is just going to be in voice only, but we're going to get her into the waiting room right now. Folks, we've got, okay, well, let me just admit Juniper. Hello, Juniper, are you there? Hello, Juniper. Are you there? Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hey, Juniper. Hello.
Hey, Rob. How's it going?
It's going very well. Thanks for joining us, folks. This is very exciting. It's not often, on my humble little stream here to get acclaimed New York Times opinion columnist Juniper joining us for this election coverage. Very exciting. Thank you, Juniper.
President of journalism as well.
The president of journalism.
Premier.
Yeah, amazing.
That's my premier position.
What a huge get. I know. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. Yeah,
my pleasure. I know you just got off work and everything, and it was very last minute. I told you I'm not good at planning these things, so I very appreciate that you took the time to join us. How's it going?
It's going pretty well. Yeah, my original plan today was just to watch the election coverage come in on my Twitter feed, and the New York Times. Of course, New York Times. It's got to be New York Times.
Of course.
Their what do you call that? Their result page. and drink beer. That was like my whole plan. So I was
the needle.
Very, very happy to see you and your invitation.
Yeah. I saw you because like you, Juniper, you were because you suggested that, hey, I know the Democrats aren't good, obviously, but Republicans are like kind of planning to do a genocide on trans people, and maybe that's something that we should keep in mind. And people were calling you like a Dem plant and stuff like that. What was up with that?
So I basically said, what you said. I was like, Democrats are like awful, but I would rather have like no change than like worse change, and the whole gambit was ran on me. Like Republicans found the posts, and like Groypers were filling my mentions, and then like the Haas, like MAGA communists found my posts, and they were calling me a Fed and like an FBI agent, and it was a really funny time. Like when I was a Lobby on Twitter, I would always see people accuse others of being like a FBI agent and stuff like that. And now that I'm like, I have more followers and people are doing that to me, I'm like, I must have been ridiculous when I called just like a random person a Fed, because like being called a Fed for just like a post is like it's like insane.
The MAGA communist crew are definitely not Feds though. The absolute like
very much not Feds.
No. They just like Trump for strategical reasons. They're not Feds.
We're very leftistly voting for Donald Trump in the election.
So that was quite an experience. I that's never really happened to me before. Like in that way. It didn't help that Vosh replied to my my post and said something like that would bait out that sort of reply. So
you're not helping, sir.
No, he definitely sabotaged me a little bit.
Well, what's your feeling about this election right now and the midterms and everything? It's like, because I understand, for trans people in America, it's a really scary time. I was talking to our guest who's also on with us, Benny, about this kind of like this trans panic that Republicans have been really purposely stoking. And it's like, I imagine it's got to be a really kind of intimidating moment as you see kind of Democrats on the verge of kind of like fumbling the bag and giving them power. And you don't know, like I was saying with men, it's like a lot of these people, I don't think they're just, a lot of this stuff, they're not using it just for rhetoric to get votes or to get support. Like these are true believers that are running in this party, and it must be kind of like what are your feelings on the verge of this, on the night of this election?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that's been on my mind a lot, especially just in the last, like, I feel like it's really come to a head in the last like 6 months or so with like Florida. What are the states that have been really going hard? Florida, I think Tennessee and like Kentucky, maybe they're all going all in on this like anti-trans legislation. And that's just been a big worry of mine. I know I'm probably going to be safe where I live, but I really feel for a lot of the people that are not in safe states or in communities that really have, that protection. Even from just like, horrible Democrats that will just like, they'll just lie and say shit. Like, I have that sort of protection, whereas a lot of people in states like Florida are scared and fleeing. I mean, there's a lot of people, not that I know personally, but I've seen people talk about how they're either planning on or already have left Florida just because they're scared of what's to come. And I don't blame that at all. And I just I feel for the people that can't leave. It's really sad.
Yeah, well, this is something we were talking about earlier. Just this. The way that like they've taken trans issues and associated with like grooming and having it like, so any mention of trans issues, especially when it comes to kids or teens or providing gender affirming care to teens, and using this kind of really dangerous rhetoric about connecting that with like some kind of scary kind of grooming situation. And like, and you get the sense as well that for these like social conservatives, like even though they realize that trans issues can be like a winning issue for them, they haven't forgotten about the sort of culture war battles of a couple of years ago and about gay marriage and these things. And you get the sense that like if they are able to sort of successfully motivate people around this issue, they're not just going to stop at trans issues either, and they're going to come back for a lot of these like social issues
Of course.
That seemed to be settled even a couple years ago.
Yeah, I mean that's always something that's on my mind too. Is I started paying attention. I really started paying attention to politics in what year was it? It was like 2012, I believe. Now, God, I was in high school still. I couldn't even vote in that election. But that was kind of the election where gay marriage kind of came into focus. I'm sure. I don't know how old you two are, but
I'm very old.
Yeah, I think we're probably the same age because 2012, I voted for Ron Paul in the primary and Obama in the general because I found out that Ron Paul didn't support gay marriage, and I was like, well, that's not very libertarian.
I think we might be the same person, because at my 16-year-old self was like, wow, this Ron Paul guy is kind of cool. one of my biggest political L's.
Well, I mean,
he was cool.
Yeah,
but...
I mean, even you mentioned gay marriage in 2012. I mean, that was the kind of the thing with liberals, where it's like, it's not like they inherently just supported all these rights for gay people, for gay marriage, but it's like that was the moment that the public approval rating tipped above like 50%, which allowed them to finally say like, oh yeah, of course we've always supported this. When the consultants and the polling people told them that it was now okay, that they could take this kind of a stand.
That's always something that irritated me. Was that like people even today, I feel like don't remember, like Democrats were not in favor of gay marriage. Not like, I mean, there was some, of course, that would be vocal about it, but Obama wasn't.
Yeah, there's like clips from Obama during his campaign. He sounds like a conservative.
Yeah, I mean, he only came out, what was that, like 3 days? Like he didn't support because it was, people I feel like don't remember, it was a Supreme Court decision, not like a Democratic government ruling that legalized it. So like, I feel like a lot of people give undue credit to the Democratic Party, where it was just a Supreme Court ruling. And Obama, if I remember correctly, came out like 3 days before the official ruling and was like, I'm in favor of gay marriage. And everyone was like, oh my God, Obama did it. And it's like, I mean, not really. He kind of came in, what's the football metaphor? He came in at, I don't know sports. There's some sort of metaphor.
He was like a
there.
Designated hitter or something. I don't know.
Yeah, he came out at the last
sports
second.
Ball.
Yeah.
The Hail Mary. Yeah. Ironically, I think it was Biden that kind of forced his hand on that, because Biden gave like a flub. Yeah, that was like, we're legalizing gay marriage, Mac. Something like that.
That's exactly what he said. Yeah. But of course, again, it wasn't really Biden that did anything. They just came in at the last second to take kind of credit for it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I digress though.
I think that's one of the big problems with the Democratic Party, though, is that like at some point, honestly, at some point during the Reagan era, I feel like the Democratic Party came to the conclusion that every civil rights like movement cause was just going to be the Supreme Court. That they were like, we're just going to bank on the Supreme Court always being on our side, which is why I think they like lost their minds so much when like Donald Trump appointed all the Supreme Court justices, because then they're like, are we going to have to legislate now? We don't know how to do that. Like what?
Yeah. I mean, something that I guess we'll see as the night goes on is to see if the longtime Democratic theory of if the Supreme Court takes away abortion, like legal abortion, that it'll be like a landslide Democratic victory. I mean, that's going to be put to the test tonight. And I don't know how it's going to turn out. It's looking okay from what I can tell so far. But Democrats just have like this mythology that they create where they just rely on these like weird nebulous things that don't have like any prior there's no reason to believe these certain things. Like why would all of a sudden, because the Supreme Court take away legal abortion, why, like you'd think that it would bring people out to vote and support Democrats. But we've seen, as you said, Rob, like they don't, I forget who said this, but they don't legislate. They don't know how to legislate these big issues. They never really have.
Yeah. Well, and even Obama, you bring up him, Obama famously promised to codify abortion rights and did not do that. And now you have Biden saying we promise to codify these rights as long as if you vote a little bit harder. You just we're voting, but we need to vote a little bit more, and then we're going to do it. But it's like after a certain point, people are not, I think, convinced by these arguments on Democrats when they say they're going to do this stuff.
Have good old
because I mean, how often do they say it and nothing comes of it?
Yeah.
I mean, I've only been paying attention to politics for 10 years, and I'm already like tired of this shit.
Yeah, I mean, it did kind of seem like when this assault on abortion rights came through, that conservatives had kind of overplayed their hand a little bit. That because it was galvanizing for a lot of people, and it's scary for a lot of people, and is like, no matter how the Democrats are constantly fucking up, it did like inspire a lot of people. But I don't think it's having quite the effect that Democrats were imagining, that they were going to be able to just like hold on to the House and Senate over it. Like, it might lead to a slightly less of a trouncing or whatever than what they might have had, but I don't know if it's actually going to galvanize enough people to actually allow them to continue to legislate after tonight.
Absolutely. I mean, my first election was the 2018 election. So I remember, or was it? Yeah, it was 2018. So, I mean, if I remember correctly, that was like a horrible midterm for the Democrats. That was just like a walloping. Like this, from what I can tell, this is like a pretty decent.
Well, 2018 was good. That was when they were. That was in the Trump era when there was the good one. Yeah, but
my bad.
Under Obama, they got crushed in both midterms, like historically.
Yes. You're right. My first election was 2014. That's what I misremembered. 2014 was my first election. That was a horrible one. I think was that the year that I don't know. I just remember there was big losses that year. That was my first election. It was a horrible year. So I mean, compared to that midterm to this year, it seems like it's going decently. And honestly, it might just entirely be because of the same Supreme Court abortion ruling. I don't really know. It's hard to, of course, put all of this neatly
about the abortion ruling. I'm kind of cynical because I think the main people that they thought it was going to sway, right? Like, were kind of baby boomers, right? And even baby boomers who might have like rallied for abortion rights back in the day, it doesn't really affect them personally. And we know as a voting bloc that baby boomers are notoriously selfish as a voting bloc. And so I think there was just like a lot of like people who at first were up in arms and living in places like Texas. And then they're like, wait a minute, my life has not materially changed. I mean, obviously it's horrible for all of these people who are younger than I am, but I don't care because I'm not them. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, something that I've been kind of paying attention to recently is, because obviously, I mean, our whole lives we always heard like, oh, just let the baby boomers die off and politics will get a lot more left leaning. I mean, it's only 2 polls, and this is only a more recent phenomenon that I've seen, is that Gen X is becoming a lot more conservative than even baby boomers are currently. I saw I think it was from the New York Times or some big organization did a poll where it was like baby boomers were like, it was like basically 50-50, like lib conservative, and then Gen X was like 60 conservative, like 40 lib, something like that. It was like crazy. I think Gen X is going to be probably one of the most like organized right-wing forces, even more so than the baby boomers ever were, and that's kind of worrying.
There's reactionary Zoomers as well. Like there's a whole reactionary Zoomer movement, which is troubling also.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Reactionary politics will never go away.
I think the Gen X phenomena is literally inheritance, right? Like, just to be real, because like, I mean, look, as a trans woman, I don't expect any inheritance from anybody, right? Just to be real, right? And I feel like there's a lot of millennials and Zoomers that are in the same boat where it's like, I'd rather be gay than get my inheritance, right? I'm just gonna live my life. But like those Xers, they were like, I've been waiting for this my whole life. I just wanted to be a landlord this whole time, and now I get to do it, you know? Like,
yeah. I mean, I think it's Gen X also has like the most wealth at this point. Like they're gonna be a big problem in politics for a while, I think. Yeah.
Wait, is Matt Walsh a Gen X?
I think he is, right?
I think he is, yeah. Like that's like we were talking about this kind of trans panic that conservatives are going on. Obviously, he's at the center of that, and that was that was amazing. That Rogan clip that was circulating today, where it's like clearly like these people don't even have to have actual facts. Like they don't even have to traffic in reality. They can literally just make shit up, and they're literally just they either don't know or don't care enough to know. But like they're completely just pulling statistics about transgender kids and transgender people in general, just completely out of their asses.
Yeah, that blew my mind.
Yeah, amazing.
There was that clip because I think he said something like, "Oh, there's 1 million children on I think he said testosterone or hormone blockers." Which, as far as I'm aware, is just like spironolactone, which doesn't do any like changes. And then he was corrected by, I guess his name is Jamie, the editor, and was like, "Oh yeah, it's only like 1,000 kids actually." And then immediately after that, Matt Walsh was like, after he brought the real number, Matt Walsh was like, I would guess like 100,000. It's like he just told you that. He just fact checked you. He said 1,000. What do you mean you would guess 100,000? It drives me crazy.
Reality here for a minute, okay?
Yeah. Yeah, it drives me crazy how they can just do that and get away with it. Like that's not going to affect anything that his fans think at all.
I saw you, and I saw you sharing a tweet today as well about the portion of Americans that think the transgender population is like 20% of all people. Like it's crazy. Like the complete lack of reality, the lack of any basis in reality that's been a part of this big panic that's being pushed. And you have Americans now that believe these complete nonsense ideas about transgender people that are completely like not tethered to reality in any way.
Yeah, I think the most stunning thing about that poll in particular, because the poll came down to like 21%. People thought 21% of all Americans are transgender. The stunning thing about that is if that's like the mean, if that's the poll's mean, some people were like, yeah, it's like 50% of all Americans are trans. Yeah. Like that's what that to me implies. Like, are people like, is the average American a transvestigator? Do you know about those?
Yes,
the transvestigator.
Those are always. I always like enjoy seeing their wacky mishaps. That's always good.
Where the people that think like Kyle Rittenhouse is secretly trans or something. It's like, is this like the average American? Is this who we have to appeal to?
Okay, here's what's really wild. Only 40% of all Americans know anybody that is trans. 40% know one person that is trans. So 60% of people don't know any trans person, and I guarantee you they're the people who think everyone is trans. Yeah. They're all trans, even though I've never met a trans person before.
Definitely. They're like they're the people that will like take random pictures of people in public and be like, look at these wide shoulders. Yeah. Look at these legs. It's like, no, that's a cis person. You're just paranoid.
Yeah. These people that like obsess over like the genitals of preteens, like can you believe these perverts in the transgender community? And the only thing they fucking think about is like what's going on. Like we need to hire a genital inspection team at the local high school to ensure that it's just absolutely ludicrous the kind of what these people are getting into. It's not good.
Yeah.
Like okay, you say genital inspector, okay, but literally one of the leading anti-trans organizations in the United States is literally called GenSpect.
Yeah.
Little on the nose.
They're awful. They're an awful organization. Yeah.
And it's weird too how like, I think to their credit, like a lot of liberals in America and Democrats have like consistently supported trans rights, maybe not as much as they should considering the level of like panic that's going on right now. But you see in the UK, for example, the way that liberals are first, they're the biggest trans obsessed weirdos of them all, and I think you wonder if that element of like the British turfism is if it's going to infect the liberal movement in the United States to the extent that it has there.
Yeah, I hope not, but I mean, it's a possibility. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like the UK has been like very like way worse with a lot of issues, just historically too, like in the 80s and 90s, they've just always been like on the downward spiral before us a lot more and a lot worse. So honestly, I don't really have a fear that liberals will like become TERFs in the same way that like UK liberals kind of have and started to, but I guess time will tell. I hate Democrats, but I at least trust liberals to like not be that awful, you know?
Yeah. Well,
like they're awful, but they're not like that awful most of the time.
I guess that's the kind of frustrating thing I imagine is just that, like, I think obviously, like, on a number of levels, Democrats are going to be better than Republicans for working for certain social issues.
Right.
But that's this dangerous game that they've been playing, where it's like you've got to vote against these other guys because of the terrible things that they want to do, while simultaneously not really doing enough to materially help people's lives and give people a reason to actually vote for them, and to not even vote for them, but to go out and knock doors and to be activists and to do all the things you need to do to have like a political movement. They're not doing any of that stuff. They're just relying on evil conservatives to galvanize people, whether it's with trans issues, whether it's abortion, and like that's a dangerous game that's going to have diminishing returns, unless they start offering something to people.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of like LGBTQ issues are working class issues, and the way that liberals and Democrats talk about them is of course, Democrats don't often talk about like the material reality and like materialism in any way. So that when like public national discourse happens, it's all about just like identity and stuff, which I mean is good, and I'm glad that Democrats are often allies in that way, but they do a disservice to us and to their own party to ignore like the materialism aspect of that. Or at least that's what I think. I think that's always going to bite them in the butt, because when they're just discussing culture war issues and like Fox News framing, they're always going to lose to these like insane 50-year-old reactionaries that get all their information from Facebook. That's just going to, sadly, how it's going to be for a while, as long as they keep talking about these issues this way.
So we all make fun of like Pat socks, right? And like the infrared types, right?
Yes, we do.
But I think a lot of liberals think essentially the same thing as the Pat socks when it comes to like, oh, working class issues versus this culture war stuff. It's so different. It's so different. But literally, like one of the leaders of like the Starbucks union organization efforts is a trans woman, right? Like they pretend that Ilhan Omar is not from the Midwest, right? Literally, I'm in here in the Midwest, okay? Like they pretend that trans people don't exist outside of New York or Los Angeles.
Right. I mean, you look anywhere. The leaders of any union movement you're right, a lot of trans people, a lot of minorities. I mean, what's his name? The guy that is doing he's the big Amazon union push. I forget his name, but he's a black guy, and I mean it's such a diverse, like, labor movement is so diverse in the United States, and that's never talked about. It's never addressed, and Democrats certainly don't talk about it.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, literally, like when I was even, I'm in Minneapolis now, but I was in rural Minnesota like before, like I moved here just like a year ago, and the easiest place to find like queer folks running around doing political organizing was like with the labor unions, right? Well, like especially like the teachers unions and like your public sector unions, right? Like you're gonna find tons of queer folks.
Absolutely.
But they pretend that like they have this weird belief where like working class people don't support queer folks, and it's like, what do you think, queer folks are like all secretly rich? Like trans folks have a difficult time getting housing and jobs. Where do you think we get the money from?
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like a lot of LGBTQ issues in particular are working class issues. I mean, I think they're inextricably linked in a lot of ways, at least in America currently.
Yeah, it's been really disingenuous, this idea that like they're somehow separate from economic issues, or that to support, or is the classic thing, like if we want to appeal to the working class, we can never talk about LGBTQ issues. We got to be using slurs. We're just assuming that every working class person is like this white reactionary racist bigot, and like these are the people we need to appeal to. But like that's not an accurate representation of what working class people are.
No, definitely not. Can I tell like an interesting story, like an anecdote?
Of course.
So I don't want to say too much about my job, but I work in like it's like a warehouse type of situation. And we have, there's like multiple buildings, and the distribution center. We have one guy over there that he does certain work for us, and he was like out sick that day. So I'm usually the person who covers over at that location. And it's like a typical like warehouse, like a storage warehouse type thing.
Someone said in the chat, the news warehouse at the NYT, I believe.
Yeah, the news warehouse. My actual job, yeah. So I was covering that day, and it's a lot of like Gen X white guys that are like in charge there. So I don't know if you've ever like worked warehouse. It does not. I thankfully don't work for Amazon. No. I just looked someone in the chat asked that.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically it's like so it's a lot of like Gen X white guys that run the place. And I don't know if you've ever been in like a warehouse that's kind of like that, where it's like people just they talk shit and like they'll just talk politics a lot. Trans issues came up once. There was like this, I think he was like a 50-year-old guy who was talking about how his daughter was trans. And of course he was misgendering her. He wasn't supportive. But some other guy that works there, they were just talking about this election and about how he hates Democrats, this guy, but he spoke up in front of this guy that was like misgendering this kid, and he was like, is your kid like a good person? Are they a good person? Are they good to people? And he was like, well, yeah. And he said, then why does it matter like how they present themselves? Yeah. Like why does it matter? And this dude is like a Republican. So to me, it's like a lot of working class people, even if they are like Republicans, aren't as reactionary as maybe the national politics might portray sometimes. Again, this is just an anecdote, but that like stunned me that this like Republican that was like anti-Biden, anti Mandela Barnes was like, yeah, trans people are all right.
Yeah,
so
okay. I have two examples of that same kind of thing, right? So like my mom voted Republican like her whole life, right? But like I tell her about like, hey, these Republicans, they're not doing very nice things, right? They want to ban trans people from public. And my mom is like, wow, well, that's pretty rude. And so she's gone from like voting Republican to like not voting. And then there's this other person that I know that's a Republican where just one post on Facebook saying Republicans are like effectively trying to ban trans people from public life. And this Republican comes into my comments is like, this is terrible. Why can't we have like a third party that's just normal? Right. Like, so I think there's definitely something to that. Like there's probably a solid third that's those like weirdo transvestigator like Matt Walsh types. But then there's everybody else that's just like, why can't you just be normal?
Right. I think we let like a lot of online discourse kind of blind us sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe like we kind of get too lost in the sauce, which I definitely do. It's fun. I mean, I enjoy this shit. It's fun. But I mean, most people, especially if you just talk to them, aren't as, at least I have found in working class areas that aren't like unionized, that aren't like very explicitly like young left working spaces, that are like these older Gen X conservative spaces, they aren't really as reactionary as maybe people might think. At least that's just my experience.
Yeah,
that's just me.
Yeah, well, I guess because I got to let you both go soon. I know you just had a brief window, Juniper, but I thank you for joining us. But in terms of the actual election, do you have any serious election analysis? What's your feeling? Have you crunched the numbers? Have you looked at the polls? What do you think is going to be the result here? What's your final thought, the final word on the midterms?
My final word. So I don't have like takes on all of like, of course, all the races, because a lot of them are kind of boring and predictable. But the most fun ones, I think, because I love this shit. I've been an election viewer my whole life, basically. So the three races that I'm like most interested in are the three Senate races: the Warnock race in Georgia, the Tim Ryan race in Ohio, and then of course the Fetterman race. I think my prediction is that all three of those are going to go to the Democrats. I think they're going to be really close, and I think we're not going to hear like the results of any of those three for at least like 3 days.
Which is going to lead to some very normal discourse, I'm sure, on the right about this.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And of course, yeah, someone said Tim Ryan sucks. Tim Ryan does suck, but JD Vance is like such a fraud and awful human being. I hate him. So if Tim Ryan is the reason why JD Vance loses, like, frankly, I don't even care, because that's really funny to me.
Yeah, and
I think it would be really funny.
And it's not even an L for JD Vance; it's an L for his billionaire backers and Peter Thiel and the people.
Peter Thiel.
Yeah, exactly. Which is like a good thing.
Exactly. Anything to get Peter Thiel to waste his money and lose, like I'm all for that.
Yeah.
To me, that's a major win.
Yeah. Ben,
So,
do you have a final
those-
word on the election?
Yeah, I guess like in the United States, what always happens is the most annoying outcome possible. So I'm gonna guess that Republicans will have the House, and it's gonna be a 50-50 Senate. I think that is what's gonna be.
Well, according to Elon, that's a perfect situation for bipartisan teamwork. So that should be a good situation, I think.
Yeah.
Because I have the brain of a child, actually. So
no, I definitely agree. It's either going to be like 50-50 Senate or like barely 51-49 Senate with, I do think the Republicans, you're right. I think they will get the House. I think that's somehow a foregone conclusion at this point.
somehow, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
not really sure how that happened, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate both of you taking the time to come and do this hard-hitting analysis here on the election stream. Thank you so much to both Ben and Juniper for joining us.
Of course. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, you're both of you are welcome back anytime.
Of course. Yeah. Just let me know whenever. I'm usually free.
Great. Awesome. All right. Well, take care, both of you.
Yep. See ya.
Bye. Thanks for the invite, Rob.
Bye-bye. Okay, that was fun. Ben and Juniper, folks. That's wonderful. That was wonderful. We're not done yet, though. We're not done yet, friends. We're not done yet. In fact, I'm realizing myself how overextended I am here. Because now we just heard from Bleep Blump Ben and Juniper. That was wonderful. And now I'm right away going right into talking to Washington Post political journalist. We've got an official NYT columnist, Juniper, joining us, and we've got Washington Post political journalist Dave Weigel coming on next. I'm realizing how intense this is. I would like to be able to get up and maybe go to the bathroom or whatever. But that's not. I'm a real serious journalist, as you know, and this is what my values are. But we're going to go right away. We're going to go right away to talk to Dave Weigel. I just sent Dave Weigel the link. And we're going to hear from Washington Post journalist Dave Weigel. How exciting. He's doing it for us. That's right. Like any other person working for Jeff Bezos is fighting through the UTI. That's absolutely correct. Perhaps after Dave, I might just take a short little breather. Perhaps. If that's okay with you, chat. By the way, thank you very much to Barclay T for the 12 months of Prime 10 minutes ago. Thank you, Barclay T, and thank you, Lily, as well, for the 11 months of Prime Bezos bucks. Thank you to you both. Thank you, Lily. And here he is, folks. Washington Post journalist Dave Weigel joining us. Hello, Dave. Can you hear me?
Hey. Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Hey, Dave.
Okay, good. Yo.
Thank you. Thanks for joining me, Dave. This is so exciting to have to talk to you on here. I feel like an official journalist here. It's very exciting.
That's right. Although we're all kind of doing the same thing of just texting people and refreshing maps. Basically.
That's true. Yeah. Well, Dave, you've been obviously following the Biden administration from moment one here. I'm just wondering, what's your stance? We know what the kind of narrative is going to be if Democrats are not able to kind of get a result that they're happy with tonight. There's going to be a lot of fingers that are going to be pointing about that. What's your sense about the Biden administration for the last 2 years and what they've done right and wrong and what has led to this point for them this evening?
It's a good way to ask it, because they have done a bunch of stuff that they promised actually, and gotten very little bounce off it. And so I was already hearing in the last 24 hours, people were starting to blame different wings of the party, blame the left, blame people for if it's your fault. If we just didn't do that student debt forgiveness thing, we wouldn't have had all those negative ads about it. But I think the argument from progressives is pretty compelling. Is it's not as much Biden, it's that because there were only 50 Democratic senators and they didn't do Build Back Better with everything in it, they had less to run on. They literally, in a very democratic way, just have like stuff that will not go into effect for a while, like the prescription drug benefit, which they've run on forever, which they talked about forever, which they're very proud to have done. It's just like no one's getting it until next year, and so I've seen Republicans do this before. I remember Republicans in 2014 had a good election, took over the Senate, and then said. And then said like, oh, well, it was because like the job numbers are good because we just won.
Yeah. One thing that struck me as very strange when it comes to the Biden administration was they talked a lot in the early days of the administration about that child tax credit and about the ways that cut childhood poverty and how popular that was. And it just seems like there's been a number of things that they could have done and have failed to do. Like they let that lapse under their watch and let this incredibly popular policy just kind of go to waste, which is something that they could have run on as well. That there's been a number of ways that I feel like, even if you really believe this idea that it was totally impossible for them to pass the agenda that they campaigned on because of these kind of like blue dog Democrats, like Joe Manchin, there's a number of things that it seems like they kind of had that they just kind of let slip through their fingers or didn't end up pushing through. That could have been something that they could be talking a lot about right now. And it's kind of perplexing the fact that they've allowed that to happen.
Yeah, and that didn't happen largely because Joe Manchin didn't like the child tax credit and thought it was inducing poor people who got it to buy drugs and to waste their money. That's kind of been the classic Republican argument against things like that is you can't like just give money to people. You need to drug test them, make sure they're not blowing it on something crazy. And yeah, they had just like a fractious party and that was 95% on board with all their stuff. And then honestly, I was surprised they got so much done in garbage time. Like at the very end of the cycle when everyone was panicking that they were going to get blown out, they did pass a bunch of small, less popular things, but enough where they had an agenda to run on and the promise to say like we're going to fix things if we get back in power. They had a fairly good close, and one thing I'm watching is as these votes come in, like very super early. There's just stuff that that will be counted later that could change the story. But they have not done that poorly so far. I mean, it is 9-15, and no seats have flipped yet. No Republicans have not technically gained any seats. They expect to, but they haven't actually done it. It does seem that their theory was, yes, things are pretty bad, but we're going to to promise to do more if we get power again, and Republicans are going to shave points with a bunch of candidates who can't win. I don't think that was a lunatic way to view the election. It feels like they have so far held off some of these Republican gains by just emphasizing that Republicans were not nominating Mitt Romney style candidates. I guess nobody says they like Mitt Romney, but they were nominating candidates who were so confident they were winning that they were moving further right than you typically want if you're gonna flip these races.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing that from paying attention to this administration from moment one is that for that first 18 months, it really seemed like they were kind of walking towards another like historic defeat, very similar to what happened under Obama. And it does seem like they've been able to avoid that a little bit. Even though, if they do lose the House, it's going to really hamper their ability to do much of anything moving forward. It might not be the same level of like historic ass kicking that they were maybe gearing up towards. Early on.
I mean, this New Hampshire race, you were asking more substantive policy questions, but with New Hampshire, you had Republican pollsters saying this was closing, this was like a 1-point lead, and New Hampshire Democrats are very comfortable. They held on, and I'm just waiting for more stuff to get counted because I want to see if there are more places where Democrats actually did turn out and hold on to voters who were not happy with them, but were not ready to hand the keys over to Republicans. I mean, the advertising by Republicans too was, and I've written a lot about this, like 5-6 years ago, they would have been, and they were a little more careful. If they were running on crime, they were like nervous about the potential backlash. It would make it look like they're just running on pictures of criminals who happen to who happen to be black, and you should be spooked about that. They lost that. They ran a very hard right closing campaign, and I was thinking about this in Arizona too, where I spent some of the last week of the race. They were not really running on here's our positive agenda if we take power. It was much more everything is awful under the Democrats. We're going to fight the media. The media is lying to you. Democrats open the border. It was just, they ran the Trump campaign everywhere. And I think there were some places where that is not going to work. Now we're waiting for the Republican theory of the case is both, we're going to turn out more people on election day. So that is going to close these margins. Democrats, you're going to turn in your illegal mail ballots in the early vote, and we're gonna blow it out in election. It's still possible. There's still a lot of stuff in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you talk about that, like the crime stuff, the way that the mainstream media in the United States has really pervasively kind of pushed this idea of like this crime wave epidemic that's been going on, which has been very strange, and it kind of like it has like. It feeds right into this Republican narrative, and it's never like as people have broken this down. A lot of the narratives about this like supposed like crime wave that's just devastating America is not even really accurate. But there's this weird need by a lot of mainstream media establishments to jump in and push this idea that there's this like it's America's turning into like the Purge or something like that, which is not exactly representative of reality. Like this has been what's driving a lot of these like. A lot of these campaigns against progressive DAs, and with Krasner in Philadelphia and with in San Francisco, it's very strange the way that the media has kind of like jumped on board this narrative and has kind of pervasively pushed this.
Yeah, I wrote about it too, and the media still has power. If you read the New York Post or saw the front pages over the last few weeks, it was relentless. It was nonstop. Every crime that happened was the fault of Democrats. Everyone who got shoved on the subway, it's because Democrats cashless bill reform, and that does still have the power to kind of churn up the narrative and worry people. And I've seen the worry play out with liberals who don't want to vote for Republicans but are panicking about crime, and it was not a fun campaign to cover because the Democratic response was not here are our positive here's our detailed positive solutions to fix this. It was okay, if you want more cops, we're going to give you more cops. And also these people are crazy. So like the progressive prosecutor argument, I think just Democrats gave up on it. They did not run as defenders of that. The sections like John Fetterman did push back on that and tried to emphasize that as a mayor, he fought crime in his town, and as a member of the parole board, he was pulling people out who were reformed not ex-murderers, people who were murderers, but were so old they were not going to reoffend. I don't know if that argument worked. Everywhere else, Democrats just abandoned it.
Yeah. It's been strange watching this narrative build up in mainstream media. I'm just wondering, like, is there any other like races? Like, there's a lot of like these high profile Senate races in Pennsylvania, the one with J.D. Vance and Tim Ryan. Warnock and Herschel Walker. Are there any like under the radar races you have your eyes on tonight that not enough people are talking about? Do you have any kind of hipsterish races that you're looking at that you were onto before they were cool?
I'm watching some of these places. So I was in Michigan for the race, and Michigan's always pretty competitive, but this time, this year there was a little bit less attention paid to it. There's a sense that there's nobody who can beat Gretchen Whitmer. This abortion ballot measure was going to do so well that what was the point of running against her? And I think it is closer than than people who were not paying attention thought. But the way it's going, there's one race I was watching. You said hipster. So like one race Republicans were very confident they were going to win was Rhode Island 2nd district. It's like, so there's Rhode Island, there's Providence, there's other stuff that's not Providence. This is the district that Biden won by only 10 points. Republicans got exactly the candidate they wanted. He's this former mayor who has won a bunch of times, but kept losing races for governor. But when he ran for governor, he carried the district. So like, we got this. And I'm looking at it now. You've got 92% of the votes in. You have votes left from Providence, which is the most Democratic part of the seat, and the Democrat is winning. So there's a bunch of stuff that Republicans thought they had in the bag that is not fallen into that bag yet. You said other hipster races. I'm kind of watching. People wrote about this, but like Henry Cuellar's race in Texas, which has just become this incredible $20 million drama. Progressives tried to primary him twice.
And famously, he survived with the support of the Democratic Party establishment, right? Pelosi and such.
He survived with support of the Democratic establishment. He was targeted by Republicans. He was raided by the FBI. He won the early vote overwhelmingly, and would need to lose the rest by a lot to actually lose that race. So I'm looking. There's still like good Republican opportunities. I think if they had a huge blowout in turnout that only shows up later, I do think like Michigan's 3rd district, which Republicans thought they could compete for after like they beat the incumbent who voted for impeachment with a black conservative who worked for the Trump administration, like that one they could maybe hold on to. I think they still have chances to win some suburban stuff. It really has not. The night so far has not. We have not seen a Republican breakout outside of Florida, and Florida is mostly done. I mean, the Democrats ended up doing terribly. People thought they'd do terribly. I'd say one thing I guess I am watching is in Kentucky. I still have my eye on this abortion ballot measure, where the state has the ability to pass a ballot measure that would amend the Constitution so there's no right to abortion. That's running at the moment. 13. So Rand Paul is winning with 58% of the vote. The abortion measure is losing with 45% of the vote. So stuff like that, I'm seeing if there's some separation in races like that.
And that's interesting as well, because like you get the sense with the assault on abortion rights that conservatives in the United States it's almost like the dog that caught the car kind of situation, where they've been promising to repeal these things for so long, and now that it's actually on the horizon and they're actually able to start doing this stuff and people are seeing the reality of that. It's not quite the big political winner that they were maybe thinking it was going to be. And you're seeing it galvanizing liberals as well to go vote against it, even regardless of what's been going on with the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I'm just kind of agreeing with you. Yeah, I don't think it's not. Democrats are going to lose. Like they might lose the House and the Senate, but the worry was that they were going to lose it by like they were going down like down to like 46 Senate seats, down by 40 House seats, and I'm waiting for a couple races to pop that tell us what's going on. You said okay, one more hipster race. One thing I'm watching is Northwest Indiana, which is like Gary, Indiana, and then the next county over is pretty conservative. Republicans targeted that. They have a black female veteran who won the primary, excited a lot of people. Ran ads about how the incumbent was like only working for white Democrats as opposed to real people in the district, and so I'm really curious about how that one goes. Like if this guy Frank Mervyn, who's this backbencher Democrat, if he holds on in that's like a lot of Republican targets will not have flipped. But this Rhode Island one is reporting first, and Rhode Island 2nd district. Like I'm looking at it now, of what is left, you have probably 4,000, maybe less, 3,000 votes from Providence. You have votes from. I think that like they can't win that. That would be weird. So yeah, it's weird. Yeah, I expected when you said let's do this at 9, I was like, well, we'll know which way direction to go. But it does it not seem weird to you that it's 9:20 and like Republicans have not technically flipped a seat yet? Like maybe they did while I was talking, but that was not how people thought this would go.
No, especially 6-8 months ago when it looked like it was just going to be a complete bloodbath. I guess the last thing, Dave, because I know you're a busy guy, you got a lot of stuff going on tonight. But you had Donald Trump announcing, we got a big announcement at Mar-a-Lago coming, folks, kind of thing. It seems inevitable that he's going to be running again, or he's going to announce his candidacy. you talked about Florida, and people are wondering whether DeSantis is going to be able to like springboard from his victory to maybe become a national figure and challenge Trump. Do you think anyone in the Republican Party, whether it's DeSantis or whoever else, has the juice to actually like challenge Trump and to kind of go in, and because it seems like Trump is still the sort of kingmaker in the Republican Party and the conservative movement, as much as the establishment probably would prefer it to be someone else. Do you think anyone stands a chance at actually like knocking him off and preventing him from walking his way to another nomination?
I think not really. There's going to be a conversation if they have a mediocre. They still don't know. If there's a mediocre night at all, if there's like, let's say Blake Masters loses in Arizona, let's say any of these other Democrats triumph in places they should have won. Then I feel like there'll be a conversation, but they don't have the guts to do it. Like they don't have the guts and the charisma.
Yeah, that's what it seems
if you've seen DeSantis' campaign, he's just different. He is a typical conservative Republican politician. He's very sarcastic. I think there will be like more speculation. Like, oh, okay, well. Look at Ron DeSantis. He blew it out in Florida. That was like so far tonight. That's by far the best place Republicans have done. Like where they improved the most over the baseline. And so there'll be that conversation. But I don't know who will have the guts to say that's right. I'm raising my hand. I'm going to run against Donald Trump now. That seems much tougher. Like they not even like it was in 2016. It's just that in 2016 he had a fan base, but people were very confident that like they could, if they just united everyone who didn't like Donald Trump, they would win. And I don't see that energy right now. But I think I'm more interested in the Democratic primary. I just think there's going to be more confusion and more disappointed Democrats who want an alternative to Biden, even if the election doesn't go that badly for them. So yeah, that's my long answer to that. I feel like no one is really in a good position to challenge Trump, but the Democratic race is the one that's going to be kind of weird.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like if they lose their ability to even like they could barely even legislate while holding the Senate and the House, and if they lose their ability to do that, you're going to have an 84-year-old Biden kind of limping into a re-election campaign with not really much to go on against a conservative movement that's going to be pretty fired up. So it's going to be interesting to see whether there is any energy in the Democratic Party to have someone else or to see if they can do something else, that it's going to be kind of an interesting storyline in the next couple of years before the election.
It will be, but I'm excited to check in. So I don't think we'll know who won the Senate tonight. I am so excited to check in with Democrats though, because they already again were like fighting over who they should blame for their historic losses. And I think that, give it 2 hours. Like let's see what happens in New York and some other places. But they might have held off against some of these worst expectations, and they did it by what they did it with the cable news strategy of warning everyone that Republicans were crazy. But yeah, watch me come back in an hour and it's like, oh, it turns out twice as many Republicans we thought early voted and it's all over. Like, that's also possible.
Yeah, it's all kind of on the table. Well, Dave, I don't want to keep you too much longer. Thanks so much for joining me. It was a pleasure to finally connect with you on something like this. It was really cool that you came on the program. Yeah. We appreciate it a lot. Thanks for joining us. Do you have the final word? You got the final word on the election. What do you think? What do you got for us? That's a lot of pressure, I know.
Oh, it is. No, keep an eye on just let's not forget how crazy things I think might get in Nevada and Arizona and Pennsylvania. If this is a disappointing Republican election by the end of tonight, with more votes still out, I think you are going to see people kind of wild out about showing up at polling places and asking why they didn't win with weaponry sometimes. So yeah, not a fun thought to go out on, but no. I don't think if there's just some seats that go the wrong way against Republicans, I think they have some ideas about which polling booths they should show up at.
Well, that's the whole thing is that this. Even if Democrats have managed to stave off this historic defeat, there's this infrastructure that's in place in the conservative world that immediately casts into doubt any of these races if it takes too long to count. If there's all these caveats, if there's any irregularities whatsoever, they're going to be swarming these places, and who knows what that's going to mean, because there's this certain sect of the right that's really primed and ready to go to respond to any threats about electoral shenanigans, that now that Trump has kind of laid that groundwork. So that could lead to some craziness. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm kind of ready for that. I don't think it's going to be a typical it's all over election night. Yeah, so It was good to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dave. I appreciate it a lot. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.
All right, man. Thanks a lot.
Okay, Dave Weigel everywhere. Everyone. Dave Weigel. Thank you, Dave. That was great. Look at this serious election coverage I'm doing, folks. I'm doing serious election coverage over here. I'm talking to actual, real journalists over here. The hard-hitting journalism. Thank you, friends. And I'll just remind you, I got to take a little break. I have to take a little break. I have to go to the bathroom, frankly. But I'll remind everyone, if you enjoy this political coverage, folks, if you enjoy this star-studded TRRS mid-terminal election spectacular, please, I encourage you to subscribe to the stream, which costs $5. It costs $5 to subscribe to the stream. You can get all the wonderful emotes. You can be part of the community. You can support the content and help keep it on the air. Still no needle. Still, we got no needle whatsoever. The NYT needle situation is not going well. It's not going good.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
By the way, thank you, Christine Doe, for the 2 gift subs.
You can count on me.
Minutes
You're
ago.
Gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Where's the needle, folks? We need the needle. We need the needle. Thank you, Cool J, for the gifted sub. I appreciate that.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you so much, John McCain's Ghost, as well, for the 3 gifted subs.
We simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
We got no needle. When no needle. Very unfortunate. Thank you, CDXX, for the 100 friend coin. Very unfortunate.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, Plunger Man, as well, for the gifted sub. Thank you, Plunger Man.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
And thank you, Sean. I know, Sean. Of course, Sean. Do you think I just forgot? Do you think I wasn't going to mention that, Sean? Of course I was. Acknowledge, Sean. Of course I was. I was just taking a moment. I was just taking a little breather. And thank you, Subversive History, for the gifted sub as well. Subversive History, of course, a brand new streamer here on Twitch, what I encourage people to follow. Subversive History. I missed the initial stream. Looking forward to catching more of those.
Rural conservative areas further west
From Subversive History. Why am I getting ads as a sub? That is a good question. I'm not sure, Osaku. I'm not sure.
Donald Trump, and I think if he struggles tonight, there will be a lot of scrutiny about that decision here. But keep a real close.
The next one we start going over inventing reality. Hell yeah, that's good to know. That's great.
283,000 votes. That's what separated Joe Biden from Donald Trump in those counties back in 2020.
Rob says he hammers the ad button. I'm just smashing that ad button. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. Oh, that was a lot of talking to people. I need to take a little break from yapping there. That was a lot of That was about 2 straight hours of yapping.
Good old Rob to talk you through all this.
TRRS Rob Knife, stop counting now.
Thank you, Osaku. 11 months resub at tier 2. Thank you, Osaku. Thank you very much. Very kind of you.
Dr. Oz is getting.
I got an ad when I opened the stream as well. You should definitely, if you're a sub, you should not be getting ads. I don't know what's going on with that. If you're a sub and your ad block is on, that might be triggering ads. That's kind of interesting. I don't think that's how it works. Rob can have a little break as a treat. Well, now, of course, I have to stay here for the hype train. So, of course, no one else donate to the stream because then I cannot leave to go to the bathroom as long as there's a hype train, folks. As long as there's a hype train. And even though a few generous chatters could get us over the edge and could support this star-studded political coverage, electoral coverage, I encourage you to not, of course, subscribe and allow this hype train to run its course.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you.
You can really vote. You can vote with your wallet.
IVOA Ted.
You can vote with your wallet. You can vote for the electoral coverage that you want to see in the world. Thank you, Quaker Oats Sky, for the 13 months tier 1. Thank you, Quaker Oats Sky. Very much appreciated.
And who's able to edge out the other at the end of the day. And as we continue to watch these polls,
This is all I got right, but thank you, Sophisticated Pills. Thank you for the 40 friend coin. Thank you. Very kind of you. Well, this has been pretty decent electoral coverage. Again, this was very half-assed. This whole election spectacular was very half-assed. Was planned at the absolute last moment. You know, if you're watching the stream for the first time as well, I would encourage you, if you're a lurker, we love our lurkers, folks, but if you have not smashed the follow button, I'm approaching 8,000 followers here on Twitch, and maybe we could get over the hump if a few of our lurkers, if a few of our non-subs and lurkers could smash that follow button.
NBC News is projecting that Michael
You want to switch it over to politics? Actually, I did try to a few moments ago. It didn't work. Stream info failed to update. So I don't know. We could switch over to politics. We could talk to some of our fine friends in the politics tab over on Twitch.
The Republican candidate in this race, and you know what his biggest messaging was?
The fine folks.
Economy. I mean, he kept pivoting every question to hit on that. Clearly, what he thought was going to be a successful strategy for him.
The fine and normal folks in the politics tab. We could get a couple more Rob Ford fans. We had the elusive Rob Ford fan, which we don't hear about much. We don't hear from those folks much in the chat. The Rob Ford fans, the libertarian enjoyers.
Trump went after him, and that hurt.
I voted to get politics out of politics. Oh, hell yeah. Ephemeral friends. That's what we love.
Right? He said he's his own man. That was his message. That was his key campaign message, that he was his own man.
We love it.
And as Chuck points out, clearly that was a turnoff for some of the Republicans in that state.
So which maybe leads us to a conversation about election deniers on the ballot.
Since that was ceded from former President Trump in the 2020 race. That's a really important point that I think...
So just a minute and a half left in this hype train. Of course, encourage no one else to subscribe to the channel. We'll have no more subscribers, then I'll be able to go to the bathroom.
Question the legitimate results of the 2020 election. Will not say affirmatively that
I would sure be owned.
Won that office legitimately. And in the governors,
I would sure be owned.
17 governors on the Republican side who are running, who are election deniers.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
We got a needle. We got a needle, folks. Thank you, Comrade Social Distancing, for the gifted sub. Nice haircut. Thank you, Jared. I appreciate that. Thank you. Remember the Trump election, the needle, when it was like 99% Democrat, and then like it flipped all the way over in like one moment, and everyone had that horrifying feeling at that time, like you had stepped off a cliff, like we had all stepped off a cliff as like a culture, not even in America, but around the world, while everyone watching that election. The needle has never lied. No. The needle is always honest. The needle finally accepted that the polls were cucked. That's the thing. Those alt-right weirdos were saying it and saying it and saying it. We didn't want to listen, but the polls were indeed quite cucked in that election. It's true. I consult the needle for every decision. Same, very much same. Thank you, everyone, for supporting the stream. Thank you very much. I'm just going to go now, take a little break, and go to the bathroom. You can watch this. This
do not accept that result, but
nowhere near comparable, inferior political coverage over on NBC with absolute loser, dipshit, Chuck Todd and friends. Obviously, it's not as good as this political coverage, but you know, it's what you have while I'm going to not be there. So
the Secretary of
I'll be
State
back in just
and the
one
Attorney
moment.
General. It's
Don't
not a
go anywhere.
trifecta. It's a
The TRRS mid-terminal election spectacular. We'll be right back.
And you're talking about a race in Arizona in 2020 that was decided by what, 11,000 votes?
If you're talking about lawsuits, right, from, let's say, Democrats if those Republican candidates do win, if you're talking about changes to voting law, for example, or discussions around, I mean, these are the people who are in those decision-making positions. That's why this matters. And Chuck, you know, to your point, I would wonder, do you have any concern? We've seen a little bit here in the exit polling, national versus battleground state split, because we all know, and I don't want to get into 2024, but 2024, the president isn't elected by the popular national vote. It's in these battleground states. If it comes down to just a couple of states, right, well, and we're looking at them.
But Pennsylvania is one big exception here because from all reports, Doug Mastriano, the gubernatorial candidate, is way behind Josh Shapiro, the attorney general, running against him. And Doug Mastriano, not only an election denier, led all the lawsuits, marched with the rioters on January 6th, but was considered really too extreme by the voters.
Another counterpoint is Brian Kemp in Georgia, who, of course, went to war with Donald Trump over the results in Georgia. He beat a primary challenge, as did the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger. So, I mean, it's a mixed bag on this issue.
It is. Look, I want to do a little heat check on the House because you used the W word, Savannah, and I almost stopped you right there. I'm like, you know what? We don't have evidence of the wave yet. That doesn't mean it might not happen, but let me show you. Remember, I did my small, medium, and large? Well, here's Virginia 10. We already called it, so we're not looking at a tsunami for Republicans. Virginia 7, Abigail Spanberger, obviously, is one that we've been very focused on here. Look at how close this is, just 3,000 votes, and we have some updated totals in here. We think there's still 22,000 votes, so this is one where we're going to wait till all the votes are counted before we call this race, but already this tells you this may limit the size of the Republican gains because, look, Florida may give them enough for the majority already. They picked up 4 seats in that state. But this tells you something. And let me take you over to Virginia 2 and explain why we haven't called Virginia 2 yet. Okay, here. And it's simply all of the remaining vote is early vote, okay, and mail vote. So even though it looks like Kiggins has a big lead over Luria, we believe almost all the remaining vote is early or absentee. And if that decidedly goes Democrats' way, that is why we haven't called that yet. And let me just take you to a few other places very quickly just to show you my little heat check of where I'm looking at races. Rhode Island 2, this was a race that Republicans were really excited about. They had a great candidate in Alan Fung, and he really he was not your sort of traditional conservative Republican. This is one that it looks like it's trend. We haven't called it yet, but Magaziner, who is the son of Ira Magaziner, if you remember him during the Clinton administration days, Seth Magaziner, the state treasurer, now running for Congress. The point is, I'm not seeing wave yet.
What about
I'm not
Indiana
saying we won't
1?
see it, but I'm not seeing wave. Let me get you some Indiana 1.
Because that was one of your first early bellwethers.
It was certainly an early bellwether.
It.
And, you know, we still got a lot to go here, so we got to wait, but there's not a lot of evidence that Mervan is going to lose this race. We shall see. But like I said, all of the House returns we've seen so far outside of the state of Florida, and the state of Florida looks like it is a killing fields for the Democrats, but it didn't spill over outside the state of Florida so far.
It's in the eye of the beholder, though. What is a wave?
Oh, to me, a wave was anything over 20 to 20. In the House, right. If they pick up 20 House seats, or north, because, you know, they picked up a bunch of House seats in 20 in their defense. They can get to 230 plus actual members of the House. I think you have to say there was at least a bit of a House wave, if you will, one step above Ripple.
Well, you need 5 seats. The Republicans need 5 seats to retake control. They need a ripple. They need 5 seats to retake control of the House. So, you know, we'll keep our eyes on it. Coming up, what does the vote tonight mean for President Biden?
We'll talk to his former press secretary, Jen Psaki, right after this.
So
want some Lebanese food here? From Booztan, probably my favorite place. Quite possibly my favorite spot. Booztan. Very good.
As we look out over the latest city-turned-crime scene, we see the things left behind. Back now with our NBC News exclusive.
Welcome back. It is election night. This is NBC's Decision 2022 election.
You know, one
Let's check in on
America's anchor, Rob Rousseau. That's what they call me. You know, I think one big takeaway from talking to Dave just now is I think it, like, one narrative about this election that does seem. I'm going to turn my light down.
It looks like the governor
There's some
Kevin
glare off the
Stitt
dome
is
there.
the incumbent is will win
That's better.
re-election over Joy Hoffmeister,
A little
who is
bright.
a former lifelong Republican.
You gotta let me know earlier, chat, that I had a big fucking glare on my head.
Well, you know, Stitt wins.
Jeez.
That's good news for him, obviously, but
Fucking, it's amateur hour over here on Tonight of All Nights. On Tonight of All Nights, on the Election Spectacular, the season finale. You're allowing me to just humiliate myself like this.
having to do with some campaign
Shiny Rob.
from this big fight he seemed to have with the tribes who spent millions trying to unseat him, both in the primary and the general.
I just thought you should shine as bright as this, the Election Spectacular. You know, so one takeaway, talking to Dave, like, it does seem to be true that the massive red wave that I think it looked like was going to happen is maybe not quite the reality of what's going on. But, like, even talking to Dave Weigel, like, the best case scenario for Democrats here, it seems like, is still like we might still lose the House and Senate, but maybe not by quite as much. And the reality is, like, even if it's not this historic destruction, if they do lose the House and Senate, even if they do better than anticipated, functionally it's going to be the same result. The fact that they will not be able to legislate whatsoever anymore. So that's an amazing low bar for a Democrat success, is if we lose both the House and Senate, but maybe not by quite as much as we were anticipating. Let's hear from Jen Psaki.
So they're also going to be watching as races start to come in the West Coast as well.
Well, if they're watching the exit polls, Jen, your old boss, President Biden, cannot be happy
Biden
about
still might
one
win.
of the
He
results.
still might be reelected even if they
Two-thirds of voters
lose.
in our exit polls said they do not want President Biden to run for re-election.
That's true, Savannah. I did see that in the exit polls. And look, I think the president has to make a decision early, I think, over the next couple of months to decide if he's going to run for re-election. Now, I will tell you, from having worked for Barack Obama when he was president and he got beaten by a lot in the midterm elections, there were a lot of people calling for him not to run either. So President Biden has to make a decision. He has to decide if he's going to battle through this another time. But I would expect he'll do that with his family and not probably based on exit polls at this point.
Will an announcement by Donald Trump force the president's hand? Make the call sooner rather than later?
You know, Lester, I think it will definitely be a factor because Donald Trump getting in the race will mean that the president will feel like he's the only one who's beaten him before,
Barfsack
which is true. and he's probably going to want to take him on again. He's been clear that he wants to run again. He's got to make that decision with his family, and I expect he's going to do that sooner rather than later because he knows time is of the essence, and if he doesn't, other Democrats are, of course, going to get in the race.
I was going to ask you that, Jen, what the timeline is. I mean, obviously, it's a personal decision, a weighty decision. The president is looking at it, but he also, if he is not going to run, wants to leave a lot of running room for other Democratic candidates who might want to get in. What's the general timeline?
You know, I think, Savannah, he knows that the stakes are very high, especially if former President Trump
really
gets in
stuff.
the race. And I think he's going to have some time with his family over the holidays. He'll have
Joe
those
knows
deep
the times of the essence, but he can't even draw a
This is a little bit
clock.
different from past midterms, though, because Democratic candidates were not running against his record. They were running against Barack Obama's record. They're running on his record in many cases, but he does have to make the decision about whether he's going to go through another election cycle at a time when Republicans have been clear that if they take power in the House, they're going to focus on investigations and impeachment. So it's a very personal decision, but I know he knows he needs to make it sooner rather than later, and we'll see.
Get ready for those Hunter Biden hearings.
All right, Jen Psaki, good to have
Hunter
you on.
Biden laptop hearings are
Coming
going
up,
to
we're
be
going to have
coming.
more exit polling from Tom Yamas on how
The top
issues like
political
crime
issue
and
affecting
abortion
Americans.
played
Where's
out
Hunter?
in today's
Where's the
vote.
laptop? What's on the laptop? I saw that Trump has a new platform thing where he wants to execute drug dealers, so that should be a hoot. I saw Kevin McCarthy of the Republican Party talking about this as well. For like fentanyl, like anyone who moves fentanyl, we're just gonna fast track them to fucking execution. That's kind of alarming. I'm sure that's not going to be misused in any way. I'm sure it's not going to count. I'm sure that kind of legislation is not going to be used against like people like the Sackler family or these like multi-billionaire pharmaceutical dealers who are responsible for the opioid crisis and all the vast numbers of deaths as a result of that. I'm sure they're not going to be the targets of that kind of like legislation. Yeah, you tied it back to China, how it works there. Yeah. Totally works in the Philippines. Absolutely. Yeah. Great. Yeah, that should be a great thing for America. As more people continue to slide into desperation, right? As cities become like as housing in many mainstream cities, like big cities becomes totally prohibitive. As more and more people lose their ability to like live with dignity, that's when you want to get the real tough on crime, tough on drugs legislation out there. How in 2022 have the Dems paved the way to lose abortions, the House, and the Senate? It's a very, very good question. It's a very good question. I don't know. I don't know if I have a good answer for you. And like I was saying before, it's like they might lose the House and Senate and still try to frame it as being like a win because it wasn't quite as devastating as of a loss as they were anticipating. Like even if they lose the House and have a 50-50 Senate, that's probably the best case scenario for the Democratic Party tonight, which they will frame as being this like historic victory. This is important.
Created a newscast just for them. We hope your family will watch Nightly News Kids Edition. Welcome back to NBC's election.
We missed some important Ukraine propaganda. Sorry, I was talking over that, folks. I apologize.
Governor will get another term. And we want to go to Tom Yamas now, who's been looking at the exit polls. And we know the big issues have been the economy, crime, abortion. What are you seeing in those exit polls, Tom?
That's exactly right, Savannah. So the Republicans ran on inflation and crime. The Democrats running on threats to democracy and abortion rights. So let's start with inflation and the economy. How did the Republican messaging work here? This is a national exit poll, so all across the country. This is the question. Who do you trust more to handle inflation? 52% said the Republican Party, 44% said the Democratic Party. On the issue of crime, this was the other big one for Republicans. Not a surprise here. 51% of voters said they trust the Republican Party to handle the issue of crime versus 44% for the Democrats. Let's talk about now the issues that the Democrats wanted to run on. The question was the Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. This is so important, guys. Right now, if you add up dissatisfied and angry, you get about 60% of voters here. So clearly this was on the minds of voters, and we're going to come back back to abortion in a second. And then also the other question, democracy in the U.S. today. This one was fascinating, guys. Remember, Democrats ran on this, but look what asked, threatened. Was democracy threatened? 72% of Democrats, but 68%
All right,
of
folks,
Republicans.
we got
It
another
affected
guest.
voters in
We
both
got another
parties.
big-time
I mentioned
guest.
abortion. I want to go to Texas.
Are you ready for
Look how
this?
interesting
In
this
a
is.
star, it's been a
And again, it's still early in
star-studded
the night. We
affair,
always want to kind of
and
preface
maybe
that.
the biggest
But the two
celeb
top
yet
issues in Texas,
joining us.
28% inflation.
None other
27%
than
in abortion. So many people
my
have talked about
friend
Texas
and
maybe
yours,
eventually becoming purple at some point. Still
mod
in that state.
and
But guys, with
producer
an issue like
of the
this, abortion, I
stream,
know it's early in the night, but that
Lo
high up in
Dane,
Texas, it could tell us a lot about what's going to happen as we move further.
is going to join
west.
us for a
Guys,
little
back
bit.
to you.
All right, Tom.
Thank you. I mean, Hallie, does that match up with what we had been seeing in polls? I
We got
mean,
Lo Dane,
I kind of
folks.
remember crime and economy being higher and abortion not being.
It's a special TRRS season finale election edition of the classic Lo Dane segment, the Lo Dane Lowdown. So here's another live look at the needle here. The Senate's still a toss-up. House leaning 72% of Republican control of the House. The Lo Dane Lowdown sounds like it needs like an epic graphic. It should have some kind of a cool graphic. You're right. Even like a like some one of those things, one of those old timey, news things, you know. What do you call that? I don't know. An old timey news thing. That's what I came up with. My brain is not so good now. My Rob brain bad now. All this election coverage. Make Rob brain bad. The news teletype, something like that. All right, here's Lo Dane, everybody. Hello, Lo Dane. Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Let me
What's
meet
up?
you. Not much. The last thing that you talked about, as far as the drug dealers, that is something I actually have something to say about, because anyone who smokes weed should know that if you live in a state where it's illegal, you have definitely hooked your friends up. You have a connect and your friend asks for some and you go to your connect and you get it for them, or even you just give them the number. You are now a drug it's been a long day.
Yeah.
You are now a drug dealer, and your distribution of drugs will be the same as if you had, like, you know, a suitcase full taking it from Colombia. As far as all of these laws go, where you get the federal pardons and all of that, that's not happening for anyone who is a dealer. And all it really takes is having some Ziploc bags on your coffee table, having scales, having... You can be considered a manufacturer of drugs if you have a screen in your grinder to, like, separate the keef. So we're making brownies. So all of this bullshit about just like, oh, they were, you know, the people who were only users, like, they probably got a paraphernalia charge too. Like, no one's getting out of fucking jail. Like, no one's getting away with anything from here in. Like, it's exact same shit.
It was a little weird.
Yeah,
it was a little weird when Biden made that shift. Seeing all the people posting the unironic Dark Brandon stuff, and it was helpful to have you in the chat to throw cold water all over that and remind us about how inadequate it was and how few actual people are being affected, are having their records expunged in any way. It was really one of these things where they wanted the credit for this big transformative thing that in reality was nothing resembling that at all.
Yeah, it was a nothing burger. What's funny is like I'm glad that you appreciate that. I actually made that like my pinned tweet for a minute. Um, but the worst thing about that is the day that that happened, then Left Flank Bets went live. And I was like, okay, I know Marcus will back me up on this. And I went to chat and they were still in the like, loading part. We'll be on soon. And people in chat were like going crazy over Dark Brandon and how good this was and how weed's legalized now. And I literally got called a Debbie Downer. I was told like, let us just have this. And I'm just like, have what? Like, y'all don't understand. This is nothing. It is literally nothing. Even Jordan argued with me like, oh no, it's not nothing. Yes, it is. It's nothing. And we're all drug dealers. All of us. Anyone who's ever smoked weed, we're all drug dealers. Anyone who's ever done anything heavier than weed, you're definitely a drug dealer. Like, so all it takes is the cop to decide to charge you with distribution or intent. And you can't get financial aid either, if that's the case, if you've ever been busted at all on that kind of level. But they're just gonna start killing people now. So like me like 10 years ago, now eligible for state fucking murder.
Yeah.
I grew it's long enough ago. My roommates and I grew a crop of weed once when I was like 21.
Allegedly.
And, yeah. And
in Minecraft.
I mean, it could have been ragweed. You know what I mean? We were growing plants, and in the state of Oklahoma, they weigh the dirt as well if you grow in dirt.
Oh wow.
Which we were. Oh yeah.
Jesus.
And even without the dirt, we definitely had enough for the mandatory minimum of life. And it wasn't that much. It was like 16 ladies by the time we culled all of the dudes because we didn't get pre-feminized. We bought them from Mark Emery, the only person I know of. He used to run Cannabis Culture magazine. The only person I know of that has been extradited, a Canadian citizen that has been extradited to America for selling seeds.
Yeah.
That's the first time a Canadian was extradited to America who's never stepped foot in America for mailing pot seeds. So, and it was Georgia was tied to it somehow. I think that's the federal facility he went to. So, of course, he had to deal with kudzu vines and humidity and.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you about one Canadian that will not be getting extradited to America either. This guy right here. It's not going to happen. They got nothing on me. Nothing.
Voter fraud. They got you. You admitted it on Twitter, and that's like a legal document now. Elon Musk has definitely proved that. Like you know, they'll get you.
Well, now that he's made comedy legal, I'm in the clear, I think.
Yeah, but parody has to be clearly marked because he banned Kathy Griffin for like doing the thing where you change your image and your name for just do a tweet and then it gets screenshotted and everyone, you go back to normal. Oh, he didn't like that and he fucking blocked her and she had to get on her dead mom's account to let everyone know she was like, okay.
I kind of considered getting in on the blue tick Elon Musk impersonation, but it's like I think when Kathy Griffin is doing it, it's no longer really like that subversive, I don't know if I can be.
Let's give credit where credit's due. Like I understand, like not being a Kathy Griffin fan, but like she is the one who did the Trump.
I was just thinking about that, the beheading thing.
But I didn't care that much.
She shouldn't have backed down from that. That was cool.
She should not have backed down from that. I don't give a fuck. They were like, oh, little Baron is gonna see. Fuck you. I don't give a fuck. Fuck Baron. Like he can cry all the way to the bank.
He's like 6'10". He can handle it. I don't know. He can handle himself.
I don't give a fuck them kids. Like I don't give a fuck. Like feed him some Benadryl and he'll fucking be fine. Like
Barron's probably on rotten.com at the White House. He's seen all kinds of messed up shit for sure.
I do wonder if rotten.com is still a thing.
I wonder too. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it is like
if that's just an old
it's
reference.
A shibboleth in a way.
Yeah.
Like, you're one of the web 1.0 people. If you're if you talk about Tub Girl or Goatsy or
all the classics.
Don't look those up. Don't look up Lemon Party. You don't wanna.
No.
But yeah, no, I'm totally anti-Baron. James. Pro ISIS style. I mean, hey, ISIS has all sorts of style. Like,
Yeah.
I would dress in some cool desert gear. Like I got no problem with that.
Yeah.
Somebody wants, okay, now here's another shibboleth of 1.0 is LiveJournal, one of the first social media networks where they encouraged you to basically write diary entries, and you could make them private or public, and then people commented on them, and there was like a friends feed. This was the first time a lot of these things existed in the internet sphere, period. So a lot of them came from LiveJournal and no one knows about it. I was such an early adopter that my actual first name, which is, it's not super common, but it's not completely uncommon. I have it as a username. Like that's how early of adopter I was. Like imagine just like jake.livejournal.com, something like that. I got that shit. So LiveJournal pissed me off though, because all the people that like bitch about Tumblr and all of that stuff, they were all on LiveJournal first. I assure you, all the cam girls were on LiveJournal, all the artsy fartsy people, all of the queer people, all of the like cheesy pagans, they were all there. And I saw a girl once post when Timothy McVeigh, the bomber of my fucking city,
yeah,
right, some Yankee, I'm gonna fucking call it like it is, some northerner,
carpetbagger.
Yeah, like I mean, I think it was like a Pennsylvanian, so they're just used to that Dr. Oz shit. But she was like, "Oh my god, I heard that Timothy McVeigh's request for his last meal was mint chocolate chip ice cream, and that's my favorite, and I can never eat it again." And I'm like, "Bitch, he breathed there. Stop doing that."
Yeah, you can still enjoy it. It's fine.
He wore clothes. He breathed air. He drank water.
You can still enjoy a tasty mint chocolate chip. It's okay.
I mean, I don't like the chocolate in the mint chocolate chip. Like,
no?
I kind of, yeah. I mean, it's actually just like, it's like the shell chocolate just busted up. Like,
Yeah.
It's not actually chocolate chips. It's like chocolate flakes. What are we doing here?
I like mint chocolate chip. I had the other day one of those Ben and Jerry's. It's like a strawberry Ben and Jerry's, but they have like little pie crust chunks in there as well.
Oh wow,
that was very enjoyable.
Yeah,
you had a face that's you'd seem like you're not into that, but it's quite good.
No. It's just interesting. Like they do wild shit. I don't know. Like Ben and Jerry are like, they're kind of corny, but they're also really fucking based. Like they were like, don't sell our shit in Israel because y'all suck.
Yeah.
Like, and everyone threw such a big fit about that. Like, I don't know.
People got very mad at Ben and Jerry, the ice cream company.
Yeah. Oh, but as far as I know, like they did actually, not Ben and Jerry, but like the parent company made it where they actually are gonna start selling in Israel.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to eat it. Like if I were like Zion, fucking, I'd be like, fuck you, Ben and Jerry. Like I don't, you're not that fucking good. Like I can mix some shit together. Fuck you. But like I don't know. I liked Cherry Garcia. I even liked Wavy Gravy, even though I think clowns are stupid.
Okay.
So yeah, Ben and Jerry's, man. I've only been to a location once in Galveston. But so I'm buying it off the shelf and shit. But I'm lactose intolerant. I don't know. Shit anyway.
What you got any kind of beverages going on?
Oh
What are you working on over there?
I'm double fisting. Actually, I have a coffee from earlier that I'm still kind of working on. I have this like coffee warmer thing over here, and I grabbed a good old Diet Coke before.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very good.
Chin chin. Folks.
Yeah. I'm finished my bubbly official stream sponsor. Bubbly.
We're gonna have to make a command for that, I guess.
Yeah.
The rain one's not going anywhere though.
I know it's still enjoyable. I know.
I don't know why. I still didn't get an answer. I pinged them on Twitter. Twitch stole our drink purple emote. It was a global emote. It was a purple tall boy. I don't know what it was for, what it represented, but I used it for our drink commands all the time. And somebody who isn't me uploaded it on 7TV so it can be
okay. There we go.
Again, so
that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Oh, guys, hold on. I just want everyone to know that I think you guys are going to be pretty excited. Like it's just a little collection of small stuff, but we have been working pretty hard on some of this season 3 stuff. So I think you guys will be pretty excited by it.
Yeah, season 3, folks. What a wild ride season 2 has been of TRS. We had a lot of ups, a lot of downs. Significant number of downs as well, but it wasn't so bad. We had good times.
The continuing, I'm just going to go ahead and say the continuing epidemics, they really are still pandemics, but whatever. I think all of this shit's just kind of drove a lot of us really crazy. And as a result, we've just had some rough interactions, and some people have to like pull away and deal with some shit on their own. And that's the camp I'm in whenever I disappear.
Yeah,
I never understood why like dogs like went off on their own to die, but everything that doesn't make sense to me eventually does.
Yeah. When Lodan goes away, you just find her lying under the porch.
Yeah, I hope so.
Forlornly.
Yeah. I'd like it to be a few days. Like I want people to be horrified, Yeah. I did tell thank you, Dr. Awesome. I did tell my siblings and the rest of my family that if I get murdered, I want them to tell the police that it was either my oldest sister, my arch nemesis, or a juggalo, like that it was juggalos, and we're gonna have to investigate all the juggalos in the metro area. So that's a fun way to go. Just like go ahead and prepare someone to set up to blame for it.
Yeah, send them on some kind of a mystery that they need to start peeling layers from. You know.
I changed my mind.
Give these people something to do.
Since, they're awful in a way, but
I thought they were nice and positive. The juggalos.
Maybe with each other, but they're also like,
okay.
There's a lot of stuff to unpack there, but they have been kind of based with like the FBI trying to call them like a criminal organization, and they're like, fuck you. I do like that about them. So,
What's that like beverage that they drink? Like Faygo. What is that?
Mm-hmm.
What is that exactly?
It's actually just a cheap soda. I've had Faygo. It makes the rounds sometimes. And it's usually independent stores that have that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But it's literally just cheap soda. If you've had Shasta, you've basically had Faygo. Faygo's a little cheaper.
But like, is it like a cream soda? Like, what is the?
Oh, it's a ton of flavors.
Okay.
Just like
that's
why
they got different flavors.
Shasta is,
it's a brand.
Okay. Like their cream soda actually is really popular. Their grape is really popular, as I understand. But there's jokes about how bad Faygo is. Sometimes like that, you'll find chunks in the bottom of flavoring or color, that kind of stuff. Like
that's where the protein is.
Yeah. I love finding that shit in like a Doritos bag though. I'm like, oh, what the fuck? Gigantic chunk of just like nacho cheese flavor,
Just pure nacho cheese chemical.
You never found one
compound.
Of those?
I'm not a big Dorito guy, honestly.
Oh, well, it happens in all sorts of flavored chips, but not a Dorito. Wait. No form of Dorito has won your heart.
I'll if they're there, I'll enjoy them. I'm not a fan of the nacho dust. If I'm gonna have a nacho, I want to have like more of a plain style nacho with a queso or with a salsa on there.
Mm-hmm. Is all it the same dust, problem with Cheetos?
Not a Cheeto guy either. My son loves them. Absolutely loves them. Yeah, right. But the dust is like the best part of it, but it's like the texture. It's like this like styrofoam kind of texture that is not appealing to me. Do not enjoy it.
Well, there are several types. Like, have you tried the puffs? All right, here's
the puffs are the main ones that we get. Yeah.
Oh, I prefer the crunchy, but whatever. I learned a trick when I worked at this like really bougie software company. There was this guy there that like reminded me a lot of the guy from SNL that played like Mango or whatever. This guy, but he showed me He's the first guy I ever saw with like a BMW SUV, like totally making up for some kind of like lack. But this guy showed total tangent. Don't you love it when people tell stories? But this guy used to eat Cheetos out of a styrofoam cup. Like at work, we had like unlimited fucking free snacks, and he'd take the little bag of Cheetos and he'd pour it in a styrofoam cup. He'd be like, "That's how you keep your hands clean." And
What, we just kind of knock it back like he was taking
Mhm.
shots or something? Okay.
I mean, I guess you could just like worms, or something.
Well,
like you go in
apparently,
and grab one with your mouth.
I've seen people use chopsticks to eat the Cheetos, which is a little tip. I don't really enjoy the Cheeto that much, but that seems like a good way to avoid the whole process, getting the dust everywhere.
I have to say, like, that is a skill actually that you should teach your children early. There's no reason not to. Coincidentally, like, I just bought a bunch of chopsticks, like some
nice.
melamine. Yeah. So, but really, no, like my mom, she definitely wanted us to know how to do that and skate and swim. I don't know why that swim makes sense, but whatever. I guess she thought we could get killed with the other one and then just embarrass ourselves in the new future leaders of America, because this is during, Japan's going to take over technologically.
Yeah, this is in the Japan craze. Yeah.
They're going to be cyberpunk while we're fucking, Green Acres. It didn't happen.
Yeah. It turned into, now it's China doing that.
Yeah.
Dang got him.
Yeah, but the thing is that Japan had this like instant, they had this instant respect. Like they're like, oh my God, no, this is a Japanese VCR. So they really got in there and made it perfect. As to where everyone talks about China shit like it's all trash.
Yeah.
But it's made the way it's supply and demand. Like people don't always want fine products. We actually have built-in mechanisms to make shit break down.
Yeah. I want one of those. I need one. You can't get one of those dumb TVs. I want a dumb TV. It's just not even an option anymore.
Yeah.
I got programs, apps, internet. It's all tracking your data and all that stuff.
Nobody makes VCRs anymore either. Literally no one makes VCRs anymore. I just looked they stopped I think a year and a half ago or something. It's probably been longer than that. I've slept since then, but I have one actually. Don't have a whole lot of tapes, but the first porno I ever saw. That's on tape.
I wish I had a pretty extensive VHS collection, and now I kind of wish I still had it. I got a couple tapes, but
we all even though it wasn't the greatest fidelity. Again, people don't always want the best thing. I find 4K horrifying. I worked in a movie theater, and I know that a theater projector is 24 frames per second. So we don't really need more than that.
No. We barely even notice our eyeballs don't even know the difference beyond the 1080p and the 4K. It's barely perceptible, but
Yeah, and anything above 60 frames per second, I don't understand why you need that. I know that we have time dilation when we're filled with adrenaline, but it's got to be the level of bungee jumping before you're seeing the blank frames in the movie theater, or you're seeing the stutter in the video game. So
well, all the stuff about video games too, it's we need 48 FPS, or it's we don't though. We don't. We don't need that. It's not even that important. It's fine. It's fine to not have that.
Man, 720, I mean, 1080 is, I can still see the difference, but 720 and 30 FPS is fine for me for the majority of things. Not that VHS got anywhere near that, but we all clearly miss the flaws. That's we're all using that aesthetic. Everyone misses it. It's, or at least we're using it because we miss it.
Yeah. Well, Lodane, you know what? I'm pretty impressed because we're having a conversation during the mid-terminal election spectacular. Didn't mention the election really once beyond the weed stuff. And you know what? I love it. I needed it.
I mean, that's the thing is where I live, they we used to have two bluish purplish dots in Tulsa and Oklahoma City, but they gerrymandered all of our districts to where now there's a huge rural area included. Like, you can just imagine the city as a pie, and they just expanded all the pie slices until we have so many rural people to water down each city district to where we don't even have the blue anymore. So as far as I'm concerned, like, I already knew that, like, Mark Wayne millionaire fucking Mullen piece of shit pretends like he does the whole like, oh, I'm a rugged country boy, and it's like, no, you're a spoiled fucking millionaire piece of shit named Mark Wayne. Mark Wayne, one word. Who are your fucking parents? I don't think they should be allowed to name anything ever.
His name's Mark Wayne.
Mark Wayne, one word. Mark Wayne Mullen or Mullins.
Wow.
And then, we got like Langford or whatever. I knew, like, it's a fucking
That should
slam
not be
dunk
legal
for them. We used to have at least more interesting politicians. Like, until a certain point, every one of our governors was Democrat for some reason. But that in my memory, but all of that switched over.
Well, I'm sure there used to be union membership and like a union activity there, right? That would lead to that kind of a thing, which has been decimated over the last couple of decades, right?
Yeah, we got right to work.
Yeah, exactly.
I was pretty young when my dad got a job. Like, he had worked like at basically car dealerships and stuff like that the majority of his life, usually the parts department, but he got a job at this place called Chromalloy, which like cleaned up airplane parts, and we're right next to an Air Force base. So like he that was a union job, and he used to bitch like, oh, these people take so many days off, and like they stand there and they don't do shit because they know they're not going to get fired. And he's a total reactionary. But then Right to Work started to get advertised, and he was like, no, wait, this is one of those things where they're putting the fake name on it, where it's like, instead of Department of War, now it's Department of Defense or Department of Peace. Like, he's like, this isn't Right to Work. This is just gonna completely fuck the unions. And suddenly he was like pro-union because he had this job that it would be hard to get fired from.
This is some guy, Rob Russo, some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual,
like,
and I
we don't
found
have to fuck with
this.
this union anymore. Like, we're just gonna let a whole lot of people go because we can, and that's going to weaken their position, and we'll just do whatever. And I guarantee you Chromalloy now is not a union shop. No, we got...
And like Dakadoon saying, now you got new union members voting for Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah. Depressing.
Yeah. No, I wish I knew then what I know now, because that's when I probably could have partially turned my dad. And I think I could have partially turned mom too. I think she was just a natural anarchist, honestly. But I didn't know shit. But that was a moment where he like actually realized that these people are fucking him over. Like, that it's not his interest in mind. Like, and he finally was in the position where he saw it and understood it. He was totally anti-union, even when he started. And then it got taken away from him, and he realized, I don't know. No, that's just the way things are here, though, is we are Texas's ball cap. We have a lot in common with like Australia as well, because like we have a very, especially in the past, abused indigenous population. And additionally, this place was settled in 1909 by a bunch of fucking criminals and drifters and like fucking skis. But you can't convince me it was a bunch of wholesome homesteaders that fucking went to the border of Oklahoma waiting for the land run where they got to all run across the land and claim whatever they could. Boomers and Sooners are criminals who jumped the gun. They went before the land run actually happened, and they staked out land ahead of time. Those are the Sooners. The Boomers, I believe, means that they used violence in the process as well. But yeah, our battle cry, Boomer, Sooner, fucking criminals, fucking like the war. Like, what are you fucking talking about? We're just absolutely stupid, and we really want to be Texas so bad that anything Texas does, like, we'll just totally go with. Why can't we be Kansas? Like, why can't we just be like flat and boring, But yeah, there's a meme that Kansans come here for weed and we go to Kansas for abortions now,
Yeah. Well, we like to see that kind of cooperation, bipartisanship, reaching across the aisle. That's nice.
Yeah, but it wasn't going to happen here. Like, I knew it's barely worth voting here. Only the like super lower positions are the things that you're going to get any traction on, and even those people get hounded out of office. Like, Norman, Oklahoma, supposed to be the Austin of Oklahoma. It's supposed to be the cool little place surrounded by bullshit. And I mean, no, I have horror stories about like the sheriff's department in Norman and like city council members, neighbors in their duplex getting R-worded because they mistaked which one they were in. Like, it's scary here. Like, we get there's a little town called The Village that's part of the Oklahoma City metro area. The Village is very interesting because it's on the border of the richest part of town, which is called Nichols Hills, and a mixed part of town called, the Village itself is like kind of a mixed part of town, and then they get like a lot more industrial and stuff. This is where our only like private school is. Yeah, so this is a place where a mayor, like being mayor of the village doesn't even mean much, like started to like respond to the police of Nichols Hills coming over the border, busting people, being like real shit heels, and he started getting harassed like at his house constantly by village police. They're just a gang. They are all occupying forces. When we were talking about defund the police, which no one really talked about here, but when defund the police was on everyone's tongues, there were people in Norman and its fellow town Noble saying they were going to just form posses. The sheriff was like, "We'll just form a posse."
We're bringing back posses.
Yeah. Like they don't, like, it is wild. Yeah. It is wild how far they are ready to go. So I don't pay attention to this damn election. Like, it's completely predictable. So,
yeah,
we're fucked.
Yep, it seems like it. But Lodan, thanks for coming on and helping wind down the stream. I'm getting kind of tired, so I think I'm gonna probably call it. I'm gonna call it for the evening. But I'm glad you could come on. Glad we could do a special season finale edition, season finale of America edition of the Lowdown. Thank you, Lodan.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you soon.
Inside baseball. Rob was already tired when I came on, so he's That's like true. A real trooper.
That's absolutely right.
Follow me. Bye.
Bye, Lodan. All right. That was Lodan. And I think it's been a wonderful evening of election coverage. What have we learned? I don't know if we learned anything. The Senate still, nothing has been decided. Nothing has been determined. The Senate's still a toss-up. Still 71% chance of Republicans winning control of the House. Seems like maybe not the historic destruction that was maybe looked like it was going to be a couple months ago, but very, very unlikely that even with, like, they're going to try and spin this as a win, but if they lose the House, it's going to completely, whatever ability they had to even legislate or do anything prior to that is going to be completely just taken off the table. So then you're going to have 84-year-old Biden limping into a 2024 race against a fired-up conservative base, probably with Donald Trump running again. And I don't know what that's going to look like, folks. I don't know what that's going to look like. If they hadn't done Roe, probably bloodbath. If they hadn't done Roe, probably a bloodbath. That is true. But it's like, that's the thing. Even though it wasn't a bloodbath, they're still going to have no ability to codify it into law. So it just seems like even if conservatives did overplay their hand, not enough to actually like cost them anything. You know? So we'll see. I'll be back tomorrow and we'll see what's up. We'll see what has changed. We can We can reconvene tomorrow for the premiere, the season 3 premiere. Season 3 of TRRS. Can you believe it? Can you fucking believe it? 3 seasons of TRRS. And I don't want just 3, not 4, not 5, not 6. Ah! The Dean scream as well. Little throwback. But thank you everyone who watched the stream and who's been a member of this community and has supported the stream throughout season 2. It's and season 1 as well. It's been quite a ride. I should go live around the same time, probably 12:30, I would say. You do have a few more minutes if anyone does want to support the stream and want to support this amazing TRRS mid-terminal election spectacular, star-studded affair, all kinds of guests, booked at the last minute. I've been here journalisming my ass off over here. And if you have a few more minutes, if you want to support the stream by subscribing to the channel, if you're a lurker or a non-subscriber, you can subscribe to the channel, get the emotes. You can give subs, join the community, join the exciting, dynamic friendship triangle community.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
There's still a few more moments. I know there's people that were just dying to do this, and we're disappointed that they weren't able to. Jerk Derbkin, thank you for the gifted sub. Thank you, Jerk Derbkin. Very kind of you. Who are we raiding? That's a good question. And can I raid? That's another question. I feel like, no, I can't. I feel like I cannot raid, but we're going to see. Yeah, I think Stu. I think raiding Stu is a good idea. We're just going to take another few minutes. We don't need to raid right this moment, because I know there's still people out there just absolutely dying to subscribe to this channel and support the stream, and I just want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to do that. I don't want to have anyone tomorrow, okay, I wanted to subscribe and you left too early. I don't want anyone complaining. I want to make sure everyone has ample time to subscribe to the channel if they want to. It's been a long night of hard-hitting analysis. It's been a long night of hard-hitting analysis, folks. My brain is really not doing good.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, Gen X Bushy. Everyone was great, including Rob, but the cerebral assassin himself. I like that. That's good. I really appreciate the gifted sub, Gen X Bushy. Thank you. We can go ahead and raid Stu. I was only being self-deprecating, as is my normal method. We can raid our friend Stu now. Thanks to everyone for watching the stream. Thanks for the shovel emote. That'd be great. Doing the shovel dance. Thank you to everyone for watching the stream. Thank you for supporting the channel, supporting the community. Season 2. That's a wrap. That's a wrap on Season 2. How exciting. I will be back tomorrow, though, folks. I'll be back tomorrow at noon, probably a little bit after noon, I would say. Probably closer to 12:30 if I'm being realistic. I will be back for the Season 3 premiere of TRRS. Plenty more journalism to do, plenty more commentary to do. Lots of stuff going on. Cliffhanger. Will the needle move? The needle has not barely budged. This fucking needle is not moving whatsoever. Thank you, Dakadoon. Thank you for all the support, Dakadoon. I really appreciate it. And thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining me this evening. Goodbye.